Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 53 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 104, As Above, So Below. Exhaustion. That's all that Denki Kaminari could feel as he continued to zap Viacons away from him and his allies. He had gotten better with his quirk over the course of his time at UA, to be sure, but even then, he knew he had his limits. And even now, he was mentally fighting to keep his brain from getting totally fried. How many are there? He huffed out. Are we even putting a dent in them? Don't worry, Chargebolt, Smintos assured, having clapped his hands together to smash the road over another gaggle of cons. I think I see the end in sight. Better hope so, Mr. Smintos. Red Riot exclaimed as he, Real Steel and Alien Queen kept plowing their way through as well. However, one punch through a con's leg resulted in some bleeding from Eijiro's hand, signaling to him that he was starting to soften up. "'Cause I don't think we can hold out much longer. URK. Little did Eijiro know that his words would prove right, as Tetsu suddenly collapsed, his skin returning to normal. Mina noticed immediately and knelt down to help. Tetsu, hold on. Through gritted teeth, Tetsu apologized. Sorry, my body, so much strain. Don't worry, bud, Eijiro assured, helping Mina hoist him up on their shoulders. We'll get ya, But at that moment, Erazor and Skywarp suddenly came crashing down from the sky, the two opponents hitting one another as they rolled across the road, and straight towards them. Erazor. By the time the Maximal snapped her head up at them, it was too late to stop herself but not too late for someone else. Because all at once, a wall of thorns and wood erupted from below, right as Skywarp was about to roll into the kids. As the branches prodded into the Seeker's back, aided with Erazor pushing him into it, Kamui Woods and Vine emerged from the wall, quickly going to help. Is everyone alright? The pro-hero called out. We will be, thanks. Eijiro assured, right as Vine rushed past him. Because at that moment, Denki's legs gave out and he fell, only for her to catch him in a somewhat awkward embrace. In the process, she also stopped an incoming Viacon with a thorny spike that jutted out from the ground and pierced through its stomach. Kaminari. Abara held him up as best she could, reaching her hand up to cup his cheek. Are you alright? Speak to me. With his eyes in a haze, Denki was only barely able to make out his savior's face, and her green hair alone was enough to make him smile. He uttered. Hi there. Abara smiled. Pretty, that was the last thing Denki uttered before he completely zonked out, his body going limp, and Abara's cheeks becoming absolutely red. Mina couldn't help but smirk at the remark. Well, I think it's pretty clear how he thinks of you. Abara stammered, decidedly looking away. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sure ya don't. Mina's smarminess gave way to confusion as she began looking around. Hey, anybody seen Sideswipe? I thought he was dealing with Thundercracker. Eijiro admitted, scanning the area himself. Where'd he? He recoiled in shock as, from around the nearest corner, came a very confusing sight. The others were equally baffled as Midnight and Runway came falling down on top of one another, the two in an interesting scuffle. The R-rated hero had her whip wrangled around the Mini-Con's neck, in an attempt to choke her. The thin lining of her costume was also in tatters as well, though thankfully her chest was still covered. However, Runway wasn't that affected, leading to her wrapping her strong arms around the heroine in a bear hug to try and cut off her air. I don't know what you hope to accomplish, Earth Lady. She derided. I don't need air. I was hoping to, at least, cause some pain. Midnight struggled to speak, but didn't let up on her strategy. Instead, she went to claw at Runway's visor, almost as if to try and gouge out her optics. Maybe, this'll do better. Nice try. Runway balked. But you'll never break through, crack. But much to the Mini-Con's dismay, Midnight did break through, using the hardened tip of her whip to break through the visor. And with a much firmer press, she shattered it entirely, forcing Runway to let go. My optics. Rolling away to take a deep breath, Midnight was met by her students, who were still astonished. Miss Midnight, Mina exclaimed. Are you alright? The U8 teacher got to her feet, placing her hands on her hips. Never better, darlings. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a little glitch to take care of. Snapping her whip, she lashed it around Runway's neck once again, though this time the pain in her optics meant she couldn't do much about it, and in an instant Namori's sadistic side was awakened. Now, say my name. Beg for mercy. Midnight. Runway cried desperately. Please, stop. Before Midnight could give her more orders, another voice spoke her name. Midnight, that's enough. From around that same corner, Thundercracker came charging in, unwrapping the whip from Runway's neck. Runway, are you alright? My optics, they hurt. Thundercracker's features turned harsh as he glared at Midnight, much to her shock. What the pit is wrong with you? You could have damaged her beyond repair. I just, looking down at her whip, Midnight's mind cleared, the reality of what she was about to do finally hitting her. Was I really about to do that? Picking up Runway, Thundercracker carefully helped her into her vehicle mode, right as Jetstorm and Sonar rejoined them. He handed her off to the concerned duo as he addressed Midnight again. I don't know, but I'm honestly surprised at you. I thought you were a kind human. Namori's brows furrowed up at him, both in anger and desperation. I am, I swear. But what did you expect me to do? She attacked me. Yes, but you didn't exactly do anything to try and de-escalate things, did you? Thundercracker asserted. Aren't you a hero? I thought heroes would be keener to try non-violent solutions first. At least, that's what all the heroes I've seen on TV do. There was a brief stunned silence as everyone gawked at the Decepticon preaching non-violence, which was when Sideswipe came around the corner and interjected, "You know, he's kinda got a point. You're not a part of this conversation." Both Midnight and Thundercracker shouted at the same time, which left both of them taken aback. Ultimately, though, the Blue Seeker shook his head and sighed. Midnight, I understand you were frustrated with her, but Runway only has my best interests in mind, even if I don't necessarily agree with her. Thundercracker, I understand. Midnight sent a determined gaze up at him. But is this really what you want to do? Slaughter millions of innocent humans just because you're told to? What do you get out of that? Before Thundercracker could reply, though, his brother did it for him. Raahhh. Skywarp hollered as he pulled himself off the thorn-covered branches. Do not let them get into your head, Thundercracker. He bellowed, bringing out his shotguns and taking aim at all of them. This is for the Decepticon cause. It is our destiny to rule over the universe. The humans all huddled together as Sideswipe stepped in front of them, aiming his missile launcher at the con. And I'll be damned if I let anyone get in the way of Lord Mega. CHHHHHHHRRRKK. Skywarp didn't get to finish his declaration, though as, without warning, a beam of freezing cold energy suddenly came from out of nowhere and encased him in ice. Needless to say, everyone was confounded. What? Sideswipe uttered. Who did that? Mina craned her head around and called out, Todoroki. Are you around? They soon received their answer, however, when a completely new player entered the scene. Oh, sorry. Everyone turned their heads and were greeted with, a blue Bumblebee. A blue female Bumblebee. Of course, they knew it couldn't be Bumblebee, but that was the best way to describe her because any other description would just be a lie. She had the exact same body type as Bumblebee, just in a more feminine physique. She also had soft features in bright yellow with matching optics. I didn't mean to startle you. She apologized as the cannon in her arm wafted off a light haze. Sideswipe rubbed his optics in disbelief, but it was quite clear that the femme was actually in front of him. Number way. Haha. Glyph, is that you? The bubbly femme beamed at him and waved. Hi, Sideswipe. Good to see you. Haha, same to you. When the pit did you get here? Glyph approached cautiously, keeping her cannon trained on Thundercracker. I was dropped off by Tap Out. We came here on a recon ship from the Kimia to lend you guys a hand. She sent a stern optic onto the other seeker. And I can see that we got here just in time, and now you'd better put your hands up. Alright now. Alright then. Thundercracker raised his arms. I'd rather not get turned into an icicle like my brother, so I'll comply. Wait, really? It was that easy? Glyph scratched her chin. Wow, I was expecting more of a fight. Thundercracker simply shrugged. I never really wanted part in this anyway. Now all we gotta do is wait for. Crash all at once, Blastwave came hurtling toward the group, only to then smash into Skywarp's frozen form. The black and purple Seeker was broken out, but it was pretty clear that he was down for the count, his body trembling on the road. And, if that weren't enough, Flatline came next, his body magnetized to his brutish friend in the process. Following the unceremonious pile-on, Bulkhead and Sunstreaker came strolling over, the duo wearing proud smiles. "Hey, and that is how you wreck and rule," the green bot said, only to then notice their new arrival. "Wait, what? Glyph," Sunstreaker exclaimed. "What the, when did, how did? RAAAAAAHHH." Just then, Blastwave lurched up, not caring that Flatline was still stuck to his shoulder. "I'm going to kill you." He charged forward with his arms and cannons raised, only for Bulkhead to quickly leap up and slam his buzzsaw hand down onto Blastwave's shoulders, slicing the cannons off entirely before swinging his wrecking mace right into his head. Just like that, the Decepticon bruiser was definitively down for the count. Peeking out from behind the branch wall, Erizur asked, "Okay, are we done? Because I'm pretty sure I'm out of ammo." Bulkhead sent her a thumbs up. "Yep, we're good, don't worry." With a sigh of relief, Erizur emerged. "Phew, I am glad for that." It was then that she noticed Glyph and raised a curious eye-ridge. "Oh, hello. Who might you be?" "Yeah, I was just about to ask that myself." Ajiro interjected. "Sides, who is she? And why does she look like Bumblebee?" Mina added. Realizing their confusion, Sideswipe chuckled and introduced her. "Oh, right. Guys, this is Glyph. She's an Autobot scientist who specializes in cryogenics." He set his sights over to the blue femme and did the same for them. "And Glyph, these are my human pals, Ajiro, Mina, Tetsu, Abara and Denki, and a bunch of this planet's pro-heroes, too." Smintos, Kamui and Midnight all deadpanned at that, right as Crust arrived with Colossus Rhodes in his custody. Alright, pretty sure that wraps things." "Oh." He waved up at the new arrival. "Greetings. Salutations." Glyph waved back. "It's very nice to meet all of you." Sunstreaker came up to her and, without hesitation, the two embraced in a friendly hug. "Haha, it's so good to see you, Glyph. Where in Primus name did you come from?" "A recon ship from the Kimia." Glyph winked. "Tap out spreading us out across the city to give you guys some backup." Hearing that, Bulkhead threw his head back with a hearty guffaw. Tap out. No way, he's here, too. Yes, and he's already had a little chat with Springer, hee. Man, now it's a wrecker party. Oh, that reminds me, Bulkhead peered over his shoulder to his new partner hooked to his back. "Hey, Rollbar, we're good now." Detaching from his back, Rollbar transformed and perched himself atop Bulkhead's shoulder. "Woo, alright, that's what I'm talking about," he shouted before sitting down. "So, what's next now that the cons are, mostly taken care of?" Hearing that, the group set their sights on Thundercracker, who glanced around at all of them before his sights finally landed on Midnight. Seeing her guilt-ridden expression, the Blue Seeker sighed and conceded. "What else? We retreat. I can't possibly take on all of you at once, even with the cyber caliber, and I'm not about to put Runway through that with how she is right now." "Please." Midnight spoke up, rubbing her arm sheepishly. "Tell her I'm sorry. Even if she doesn't accept. Yes, I let my sadistic side get the better of me. And she didn't deserve that." Staring into her eyes, Thundercracker could see the sincerity within them, but still gave a disappointed sigh. "Thank you, Midnight." He reached up to his helm and called it in. "Nitra, bridge us out of here." Right as the portal opened, though, a barely conscious Skywarp went to claw his way back up. "No, not yet. Not yet. Brother, you're injured and we're outgunned," Thundercracker asserted. "It's important that we live to fight another day. And besides," he kept his voice hushed as he told his brother, "you know that battle isn't over yet." Clenching his metal teeth, Skywarp shakily stood up, hobbling his way toward the vortex. Fine, he shivered. "Blastwave, Flatline, we're leaving." About that, Flatline prodded his large friend's unconscious form. "I don't believe he's getting up anytime soon." The Seekers both groaned and went to pick the munitions officer up, lugging him through the portal. Skywarp wound up tripping a few times, but eventually, they were able to get him through. So we're really just gonna let them leave? Smintos questioned. Recognizing this, Bulkhead smirked down to the hero and winked. Oh, don't worry. They're in for a big surprise once they get back. He glared toward the vortex as it finally closed. That's for Crystal City. Bastard. On the other side of the ground bridge, meanwhile, the Seeker duo let out a combined huff as they set Blastwave down. Skywarp hobbled over to the nearest wall, slumping against it tiredly. I still say we shoulda finished him off when we had the chance. There'll be other chances, Thundercracker assured. What's important is that we all live to take that chance. He trailed off, however, as his mind went to Midnight, recalling the sadness he saw behind her gaze. And I think we all have some contemplating to do on that. Indeed. Wait. Flatline shut his mouth as a high-pitched beeping met his audio receptors. Beep, 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 asterisk, do you hear that? Skywarp furrowed his brow and nodded. Why yeah, I hear it, where's that coming from? Focusing on the noise, Thundercracker approached Flatline, only to realize that it was coming from under the doctor. He quickly hefted Blastwave up and, attached to his chest, was a bomb. Flatline and Skywarp's optics widened and, without even thinking, Thundercracker ripped it off and threw it further into the room, much to Nitra's bewilderment. Ay Dios míos, you idiot. What the he, but she was cut off when Thundercracker grabbed her and tossed her onto the other cons, with Skywarp topping the pile. Shut up. We get outta here. VWOOM. Cha-kum. High above Mission City, an unexpected explosion rocked the Deception warship, Desolation, something which was undoubtedly seen by every participant in the battle. However, a certain female seeker was probably the most aghast by it. After all, it was her ship. What? Slipstream shouted, just barely dodging swing from Windblade's sword before blasting her away. She then immediately called the ship, screaming into her comm, Slipstream to Desolation, what the frag is going on up there? See Commander Slipstream, we've received damage to the hull, about 15%. The Viacon controller responded, caused by an explosion in the ground bridge station. The ground bridge? How? We're still looking into it, but, Just then, a different voice chimed in, a rather familiar one. SS Slipstream, this is SS Skywarp. I'm afraid I know who's RR responsible. Slipstream raised an eyerage at her brother's stuttering. Skywarp, what are you? I was FF flash frozen by an Autobot, don't ask any FF further. She could practically hear Skywarp's grimace on the other end. Anyway, a Wrecker-issued grenade was strapped to Blastwave's chest before we came through. And you didn't notice, gah. But before she could start ranting at her brother, Windblade came back and struck her from behind, cleaving through her back. The city speaker then dove straight into her and slammed her into the pavement, standing over her with her sword poised to stab right through her head. Well, guess you can't have everything go to plan, can you? With a scream of retribution, she went to plunge her blade through Slipstream's cranium, and she would have, if it hadn't been for Swindle blasting her away. Gaaaah. Windblade landed in a smoking heap across the street, much to Momo's horror. No, Windblade. She went to run for her partner, but was held back by Edgeshot, who had just barely recovered himself. Let me go. I have to help her. How, Yaoyorozu? The ninja hero said calmly, gesturing to the loaded-out con artist and all of his weapons. How do you intend to help against that? He has a point, Yaomomo, Setsuna agreed regrettably. Our quirks are good, but against all of that, we'd need something equally as overpowered. Hello. Just then, the girls and Edgeshot were quickly reminded that Kata was still a Triceratops, butting her large head into the conversation. Still here, remember. Relax, I've got this. Rao. Edgeshot didn't even get to warn her before she charged straight in to confront Swindle and Slipstream, the two Decepticons looming over Windblade's beaten form. Come on, Decepticon punks. The duo peered back, with Slipstream sneering at her. More pests. Swindle, destroy her. Aiming all of his weapons at the incoming dinosaur, Swindle grinned maliciously. My pleasure, Miss Slipstray, AAGH. Q. However, right at that moment, Flare-Up came in and began zipping all around the two, peppering them with pistol fire from every angle. ACH. Why you little, wagh. And just like that, the distraction proved successful as Kata rammed into Swindle's legs, taking him down before swinging her tail into Slipstream. Slipstream was about to grab said tail, only for Flare Up to grab her instead. Cheers, love, the cavalry's here. Not for long, Slipstream shoved Flare Up away and jetted up into the sky, calling out, "Skull Cruncher." Gra triple A. With a single roar, everything started to feel like it was going in slow motion. Because, from seemingly out of nowhere, Grimlock and Yukio were tossed straight through the air, both of them landing on Kata and Flare Up. CRAASH Kriti, Lizardy and Edgeshot were left stunned by the pile-up before them, but the girls were more so scared by the arrival of Skullcruncher in his cyber-key-powered form. Rahahaha. Oh, now this reminded me of the old days. The croc-headed bot guffawed. Used to pull this trick all the time, and it never gets old. Hee, nice job there, Scully. Swindle smirked, aiming his cannon down at the heroes and Autobots. Now, let's finish him off. Grimlock growled and went to get up, only to notice Kata and Yukio underneath him. They had taken the brunt of the crash, and as a result, had reverted back to human form. Both were clearly dazed, confused, and most importantly, hurt. Kata, no. Grimlock's visor began to shift from blue to red, his anger spiking and his fists clenched in utter rage. Rag. Grimlock, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*, SMAAAASHH. Now in Dino mode, Grimlock sunk his teeth straight into Swindle's arm and, even with all his weapons going off, shook him like made. AAAAGH. RRRRIP, and just like that, Swindle was down one arm, but Skullcruncher didn't allow Grimlock to take any more as he tackled him down. Ack. Why yeah. Take that, you dumb, stupid lizard. Down below, Kata began to stir, her hand moving to her throbbing head. MPH, what happened? Her eyes then snapped open when she realized she was back to normal. Wait, why am I? The sudden jolt from Flare Up picking them up jostled Yukio awake as well. What happened? Don't worry, love, we're getting you both out of here, Flare Up reassured as she shakily stood up with Kata and Yukio in her arms, only to then get cut off by Slipstream coming back down. Scrap. Oh no, I am not letting any of you get away. Slipstream snarled, her optics darting between them and the rest of the humans. That goes for you and all of your little friends. As she went on her tirade, though, she failed to notice that something was approaching from behind. A rather big something. I've had it up to here with all of you today, so either you lay down quietly and I execute you, or we do this the hard, URK. With gazes wide, Flare Up and the others watched as the unknown bot grabbed Slipstream by the neck and proceeded to smash her into the road several times over. Her body was like a ragdoll as it was finally implanted into the ground, still very conscious and in incredible pain. She groaned. That'll take care of her for a bit. The figure said as he turned around, revealing himself to be a gigantic robot gorilla. His head and torso were strangely metallic silver, as were his gorilla feel. His shoulders, hands and waist were red while his arms and legs were in off-white, with a large panel on his back being the same color. At his sides were a pair of black panels where his ribs would be, and his optics glowed a bright yellow. Despite his intimidating stature, however, Flare Up seemed to light up when he saw him. Hi there, Flare, he spoke in a deep voice, approaching on his knuckles. It's certainly been a while. Appelink Q. After carefully setting Kata and Yukio back down with the other humans, she rushed over and practically glomped onto her large friend. Ahahaha. You're here. You're finally here. What took you so long, ya bugger? Hey, well, better late than never, right? Appelink reciprocated the embrace. It might have taken even longer if we hadn't taken a recon ship to help you out. When we got the distress message from Roadbuster, we feared the worst. The humans, however, were understandably confused. Did we just get saved by a giant gorilla? Setsuna uttered. Tokage, at this point, nothing surprises me anymore. Momo deadpanned before asking, Flare Up, who is this? At first, Flare Up was about to introduce her friend, but then she noticed that Grimlock and Skullcruncher were still going at it. The Dinobot leader was starting to gain ground, but Swindle was making it all the more difficult. Even without an arm, he was still unleashing an incredible amount of firepower. And it was then that she decided that enough was enough, this needed to stop. I think hellos can come later. Right now, Grim needs help, she set her sights to Appelink with a thumbs up. Think you can do that, big guy? The Maximal chortled as he set her down. Huh, I was wondering when you'd ask. Reaching onto his back, Appelink pulled off what could only be described as a handheld railgun, which he held in one hand. Though between the large prongs, instead of a projectile, an electrical current could be seen moving inside. Just leave it to me. Choom. And with that, he shot straight up into the air with a jet-boosted leap from his backpack, leaving the humans astonished. Once he reached the peak of his jump, he raised his fist and let out a loud roar. R-A-A-A-A-U-U-U-G-H-H. Huh. What was, Swindle screamed, only to get curb stomped by Appelink. Kid. Swiping Grimlock away with his tail, Skullcruncher refocused his efforts on the new player. Ya damn, dirty ape. He brought his claws down and smashed them into Appelink's arm, though he only just barely left a scratch on his thick armor. Where the pit did you come from? Rather than answer him, though, Appelink brought his Tesla cannon up and pressed its switch trigger, unleashing powerful bolts of electricity through him. Just got here, actually. Plan on sticking around. Swinging his fist up, he clocked Skullcruncher in his elongated jaw. More than I can say for you. By that point, Grimlock had gotten his bearings and started breathing fire on Skullcruncher, melting through his scaly armor. Yeah. The pain was so great that it forced the Protectabot to revert back to his normal robot mode, falling to the ground in the process. Grimlock growled and went to raise his foot, only for Appelink to once again come flying in. Appelink, maximize. With another roar, Appelink's body twisted around, assuming his robot mode. And ironically, unlike his beast mode, he appeared a fair bit more organic. Namely in his upper body and head. His arms and legs were basically the same as in beast mode, only with his robot legs having extended out of his gorilla ones. But once the back panel shifted around, placing the black rib panels on his shoulders, it revealed that his robot mode chest was quite muscular, covered in red fur with malleable pecs made of silicone. His face was much the same, made of dark metal with his helm covered in more red fur. The central crest and the antenna on the sides of his helmet were metallic green, though this resulted in him oddly resembling Optimus Prime. As Appelink came down, he reached behind his back and pulled out a pair of maces, which he then used to beat Skullcruncher's head in. Wham ** bam * smash. By the time he was finished, the Protectabot was left battered and beaten, with bits of his helm and face falling off. Yush hafaga, he uttered, completely incomprehensible. Hey! Grimlock growled at Appelink as he stepped off his opponent. He was mine. Hee, sorry, Appelink grinned sheepishly. Flare Up asked me to take care of him, so I did. With an annoyed grumble, Grimlock transformed and shook his head. Whatever, and just who the heck are you? The name's Appelink. The Maximal extended his hand. And it's quite the honor to meet you, Grimlock, sir. HMPH, please, let's not go with the whole, sir, scrap. Grimlock insisted, shaking hands with the cybernetic simian. Just call me Grim. Kata cried out, catching the two's attention. Get over here. Windblade's hurt, bad. Hearing her cry for help, Grimlock broke the handshake with Appelink and the two of them rushed over, to see a rather grisly sight. Windblade had a large hole blown through her abdomen, and she was leaking energon excessively. Her venting was also erratic, clearly in a state of panic. Gee Grimlock, she said as her optics began to blur. Where's Momo? Pete, please tell me she's alright. Little did she know, though, her human partner was right next to her head. Windblade, I'm right here, Momo reached out, touching the city speaker's cheek reassuringly. Pete, please, hold on. We'll call Red and get you back to base. I'm afraid there's no time to wait on that, Appelink said as he gingerly made his way up to the ailing Autobot. Excuse me, pardon my step. He knelt down beside Windblade and pressed down on his own arm, causing a panel to open. Stored inside of said arm was a syringe, one that was filled with some sort of black material that had glowing red lines. At first, the humans thought it was liquid, but it seemed oddly solid within the tube. "We'll have to improvise for now," Appelink said as he took hold of the syringe. What is that?" Momo asked worriedly. Appelink smiled down at her reassuringly. "This is a nanotech patch of my own design. They're essentially nanites that inhabit a grievous wound and stops any energon leaks. It's not a permanent fix, but it helps keep injured bots alive to receive proper medical treatment later." Momo laced her fingers together in a prayer. So you're saying, she'll be alright?" "She will. I promise." Appelink moved the syringe down near Windblade's stomach, injecting her with the nanotech. "To have a bot like Windblade die, I wouldn't forgive myself." Within seconds of inoculating her with it, the humans and Autobots watched on as the nanites began to spread throughout her wound, filling it out with a patch that was, again, mostly black with red lines going throughout it. And thankfully, the results were almost immediate. Windblade let out a loud gasp, suddenly feeling energized as her leaking energon stopped flowing. "Ah! Hawk hawk hawk! Oh, Primus, oh by the primes! Windblade!" Momo cried, rushing back over as her partner laid down. Don't move, okay. Appelink says it's not a real fix." "Huh, why yes, I heard." Windblade affirmed, reaching out to gently grasp Momo's hands. But it's okay, Momo, I'm better than I was just a few seconds ago, at least." Her optics shifted up to her savior. "And you, you're certainly a sight for sore optics, Appelink." "Thank you." With a salute, Appelink remarked, "Just doing what I can. Far be it from me to just let you die in front of your partner like that." But then, his words echoed through Flare-Up's mind, and that's when she realized something important. Oh my gosh, my partner. Her hand flew up to her helm, frantically contacting her abandoned team. "Flare-Up to Strongarm, do you copy?" "Cakes, Strongarm here," the cadet responded instantly, much to the scout's relief. "Reading you loud and clear." "Oh, hi Flare." Itsuka chimed in as well, which put her even more at ease. "Hey, did you nab Swindle?" "Hee, oh, well, I didn't," Flare-Up winked to Appelink. "But someone did. Anyways, what about you lot? You guys alright?" From the other end, Aizawa spoke up next. "We're fine. Strongarm won over Swift, so we decided to head to Prime's location. We have a feeling that there's a massive battle happening at City Hall." Strongarm clarified further, "Devastator's running amok. Mount. Lady's holding him off right now, but I don't know how much longer she can hold up." Overhearing that, the rest of the team became instilled with determination, their focus directly on Flare-Up. And, with a supporting nod from Windblade, it was clear what the scout had to do. "Alright, we'll meet ya there. It's time for all of this to come to an end. I'm only gonna ask this once. Where is Rodmus?" And just like that, silence gripped the abandoned storage building where Izuku and his group had gathered. They had already been thrown for a loop after meeting Ace and learning of his true nature, but this was personally monumental. Not just to him, but to Kyoka as well, who was covering her mouth in shock. Bumblebee wasn't just back in a new, stronger body, but his voice was back as well. The once mute Autobot didn't have to speak with his radio anymore, and just by how he spoke to Professor Princess, they knew he was taking full advantage of that. The trembling young woman pinned beneath his hand screwed her eyes shut and answered almost immediately. "See City Hall. He's at City Hall." And even more surprising was that she continued to explain his plans. He sent out a bunch of cronies to tag and bag Prime so he could finish him off there. By now, he's probably got him there. In what felt like a complete 180, Bumblebee's stern glare turned upside down into a content smile. "Great. Thanks for your cooperation." Lifting his hand off of her, he jerked his thumb over his shoulder. "Now get your horse and get out of here. Maybe rethink your life choices while you're at it." "Why yeah, right." Penelope shrieked sarcastically as she scrambled over to Powdered Sugar, who was walking with a visible limp. "Nothing I can't fix, but he looks like he can still fly." She mounted the mechanical equine, who took to the air instantly. "I won't forget this," she screamed back at them as she jetted off. Was that the best idea, Big Yellow?" Blur questioned. "What if she tells on us?" "Even if she does, it won't matter," Bumblebee stated, his serious demeanor returning. "Because nothing's gonna stop me from getting to Rodmus." He set his sights out to the team, setting his fists to his hips. Okay, so Red filled me in on everything. Prime plans on using the Matrix to try and purify Hot Rod, which I'm all for. But if he's got any chance at doing that, we're gonna have to overwhelm and weaken him so Prime can actually use the Matrix. So my plan is, he trailed off as Izuku, Kyoka, Ochako and RC simply stared dumbfoundedly at him, and that's when he remembered, oh, right, surprise. And just like that, the teenagers let out a collective scream. AAAAHH. B. Izuku practically bounded up his partner's body all the way up onto his shoulder. Your voice. It's back, Ochako added gleefully. Haha, that's so awesome. Kyoka ran over and hugged B's leg, while Izuku wrapped his arms around the yellow bot's head as best he could. Bumblebee knelt down to reciprocate, giving a small chuckle. Hee, yeah, pretty big, huh? The reformatting process really gave me all the perks. Izuku tilted his head at that. Wait, reformatting, is that what transferring a spark is called? Actually, they couldn't get my spark out of my body. B explained, so they had to dip me into the protomatter. RC stared at him incredulously. They what? Did they have any idea of the risks that has? You could have been reborn without your whole memory bank. Offering her a smile, Bumblebee scooped Kyoka up, placing her on his other shoulder as he walked over to RC. Of course they did, see, but hey, it worked out in the end. He raised his arms up in celebration. I'm back, and I feel better than ever. And how? Jazz went over and nudged B with his fist. Y'all got some height, man. You're taller than most of us now. B gave a shrug, noting that he was, indeed, a bit taller than Jazz now. Not by much, but I will admit that it's pretty cool. He set his sights over to Moonracer, Blur, and Ace's group next. And I see that we've got some new allies, huh? Moonracer gave a cheery salute. That's right, Moonracer and Blur of Velocitron, reporting for duty, sir. Hey, why do you get top billing? Blur asked with a pointed gaze. 'Cause I'm the more mature one. Says the femme who takes every opportunity to try and smash something. Before the back and forth could continue, Bumblebee snapped his fingers, getting their attention. Hey, not the time to be arguing. Remember where we are right now, okay? This is a serious situation. Then, out the corner of his optic, he spotted the new chasm that had just been formed not 5 minutes ago. Also, what's with the inconspicuous hole? Clearing his throat, Ace garnered the yellow bot's attention. Ahem, well, that's actually my doing. I created that hole as a way to fast-track you all down to that ship that's beneath the city, though the spoiled princess arrived before anyone could use it. B, I wouldn't buy into what this guy says so easily. RC chimed in, once again sending a skeptical gaze toward Ace. This guy claims himself to be a god, and an actual common rider, from a different universe, but I'm not buying any of it. Raising an eyerage, Bumblebee glanced down to the group of 4 mysterious humans, only to then kneel down to their level. It was then that he spotted their belts, and his interest was piqued. Actual common riders, If you don't believe us on that part, then fine. Mikanaga said, jerking his thumb towards Ace. Same thing about him being a god. But if there's anything we can agree on, it's that these Decepticons need to be stopped. With a slow nod, Bumblebee concurred. Yeah, no doubt, but I think we can also agree that you guys are being very suspect, so I think it's best for someone to keep watch over you. To see if you can be trusted. He rose back to his full height, looking to his pink compatriot. RC, you have experience piloting ships, right? Yes, I do. Peering down into the hole, RC continued, and the ship should be big enough to blast straight out of the ground. It's gonna cause a lot of property damage, but at this point, I'm pretty sure the city's mostly evacuated. Right. In any case, I think you should take Theseus guys with you down there. B gestured toward the riders. If they're truly like what they say they are, then maybe they can lend a hand getting that ship back up and running. Seeing her concern etched into her features, he rested a hand on her shoulder. Of course, I don't expect you to go down with them alone. But you can't go because you've gotta go help Rodmus. Yeah. The 2 bots wore expressions of pain and sympathy as they accepted the harsh truth of the matter. And that's when Jazz stepped in. Don't worry, see. I'll make sure you're safe down there. Needless to say, Kyoka had her concerns. Jazz. Kyo, I get it, but with how I am now, I wouldn't be much use out there. Just as an example, Jazz flexed his arm, and the group could practically hear it creaking. I ain't at death's door or anything, but my reflexes won't be back at 100, till I get back to base. Better for me to head down and help with the ship. Much to everyone's surprise, Ochako volunteered next. I'm going, too. If the ship's buried in any rubble, I can help move easily. Same here. Bakugo piped up as well, flexing his hand as sparks danced around his palm. I'm tired, sure, but I've still got enough juice left to blow some rocks away. With narrowed optics, Bumblebee chuffed at the blonde's presence. Oh, yeah, you're here. That a problem, Brian? So long as you're compliant with orders, no. Bumblebee pointed at him. But once this is over, you and I have a lot to talk about. With a simple shrug, Katsuki accepted, joining up with Jazz and Ochako with RC's group. Alright, with that decided, I think it's time we get rolling. Let's get this done, everybody. He approached Izuku and Kyoka, the duo beaming up at him expectedly. I'm guessing you guys want a ride, he smiled. Is it that obvious? Kyoka retorted. Izuku raised an eager fist to his best friend. Let's do it, partner. Reaching his own fist down, B knocked it lightly against the greenettes, followed by Kyoka giving her own fist bump to him. Haha, I'd be more than happy to. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT** 1 conversion later and Bumblebee was in his Camaro form, his engine already revving up and rumbling. Woo. Okay, I'll for sure miss the Beetle, but this thing is badass. Kyoka complimented, opening the passenger seat. And in an instant, she swooned. Ah, leather seats. Izuku was about to climb into the driver's seat, but Moonracer was visibly disappointed by that, pouting at him. Ah, here I thought we had something cool going on. Yeah, Izuku rubbed his neck sheepishly. No offense or anything, Moonracer, but I think it's gonna take me some getting used to riding on you. It was then that an idea struck him. Hey, tell you what. How about once this is all over, you and I do some practice runs? We'll make it a thing. And just like that, Moonracer perked right back up again. Ooh, okay. Sounds like a plan. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT** transforming into her motorcycle mode, Moonracer brought forth a helmeted holoform, completing the illusion. Then let's go. Blur sent Izuku a smirk. Hey, nice one, dude. Ya sure know how to make a femme happy. *seeked* with unparalleled speed, Blur changed into his Cybertronian racer alt mode, his engine already in full throttle. On your mark, Big Yellow. Taking to the front of the pack, Bumblebee opened his driver door for Izuku. Come on, partner. This'll be our finest hour. Giving him a nod, Izuku climbed in and secured himself in the very comfy new seat, allowing Bumblebee to call out, Autobots, let's roll up and roll out, and his battle cry was met with awkward silence, much to his chagrin. I'll work on that last part. On that rather odd note, the three bots zoomed out of the storehouse, leaving RC and Jazz to pick up their human companions, despite the former's hesitancy. She warily eyed Ace as he settled into her hand with Ochako and Neon. So, is this just a straight drop? Of course not. Ace denied. There's a downward slope about 20 feet down. Once we get there, it should be a smooth ride the rest of the way. Well then, guess we're doing this. RC took her leap down into the hole, and just as Ace said, they hit the bottom sooner than expected. Jazz followed after, and with that, the duo transformed themselves, the humans settling in their seats. Whoa! Neon exclaimed, suddenly getting strapped into the back of RC. Do you guys just do that all the time? Ochako peered back at her from the driver's seat. Only in emergencies. Now hold tight, it's about to get bumpy. With their headlights on, the two Autobots drove down deeper into the dark tunnel, both of them hoping that they weren't being steered wrong. Meanwhile, Strongarm had just screeched to a halt a couple blocks away from City Hall, herself opening her doors for everyone to get out. Alright, this is our stop. Once everyone disembarked, she transformed, pulling out her crossbow as the Minicon Council surrounded her as well. Alright, now I want everyone to be on their guard. One wrong move out there and, THOOM just then, the sight of Devastator's foot caught Strongarm's optic. Oh my god, Tenya exclaimed. Is that? Scythe affirmed it as the Gestalt's head came into view over the buildings. Yep, that's Devastator. He's humongous. Tiger Claw exclaimed, only to see the gigantic green bot start shuffling his way around the buildings down the street they were on. And he's headed this way. Yah-ag. But, to the astonishment of everyone, Devastator was quickly followed by MT. Lady, who tackled him down. The blonde heroine screamed angrily as she brought him to the ground, pummeling him relentlessly as she bled from the forehead. The group were left stunned by the act, though Aizawa was significantly more concerned. We shouldn't get near that. Gee, thanks, Captain Obvious. Kamakura deadpanned. Itsuka, however, objected to the teacher's stance. Mr. Aizawa, are you saying that we came all this way just to sit the rest of the fight out? With a sigh, the homeroom teacher looked at her seriously. Miss Kendo, I admire your spirit to continue fighting, but when it comes to that, he pointed over to where Devastator had just gotten back up and was pushing MT. Lady off of him. It's important to recognize when something is out of your league. Certain heroes are good at these types of battles, others aren't and have to delegate the tasks to others who are more suited to it. A fine lesson to learn, Mr. Aizawa, but now may not be the time for it. Tenya thrust a finger up, indicating that MT. Lady and Devastator were bringing their fight to them, rolling down the street. The group's eyes widened as their tussling shadows loomed over them. Run, now. On Aizawa's instruction, the group did as they were told, only to then be greeted by a certain other group of Autobots coming straight at them from the other end of the road. Cheers, loves. Flare-Up declared, with Grimlock and Appelink on her tail with the humans on their backs. The cavalry's her, by Primus. Her declaration was cut off when Devastator, getting his footing, stood and rose his leg up threatening to crush them all. Fortunately, this was where Grimlock came in. Reaching behind his back, he pulled out his Galaxial laser launcher and took aim. Try this on for size, ya oversized scrap heap. Ka-pow. The twin laser beams struck Devastator right in the center of his chest plate, causing a small explosion that took the combiner off guard. Raaaaaauuughh. He roared in pain, clutching his chest while doubled over next to another building. MHA. Mount. Lady uttered, spotting the reconvening group. Edgeshot rushed over to her, placing a hand on her arm. Don't move, MT. Lady. Everything's all right now. Edgeshot, where did you? Don't worry, we're here to help. Yukio hollered, having transformed back into her dragon form to fly up to Devastator's head. She flew around like an annoying bird, clawing and swiping at the combiner's helmet and upper body. Hey, this way, you dumb brute. And just like that, she successfully led the giant away from the teens, prompting Grimlock to run up next to MT. Lady. The Dinobot leader raised his rifle and nodded to her. Come on, let's finish this. Her features etched with determination, she picked Grimlock up, almost as if he were a toy in her hand. Right, let's move. With their departure, the others regrouped near an alleyway, with Flare-Up and Itsuka the first to reunite. Flare. The redhead rushed up and hugged her partner's leg. I'm so glad you're okay. Do you have any idea how worried I was? Yeah, sorry about that, love. The scout replied, rubbing her neck sheepishly. But Swindle really gave me the runabout, ya know. But good news, he and Skullcruncher won't be bothering us for a while. Same goes for Slipstream. Who's Slipstream? A wince appeared on Flare-Up's features. Would ya believe Starscream's sister? Ew. Tenya and the others were equally repulsed. As kindly as I can put it, I'd rather not think of what horrors Starscream's sister can conjure up. But then, he noticed the absence of a certain pair of partners. Wait, where are Yaoyorozu and Windblade? We had them bridged back to base. Kata revealed. Windblade sustained heavy damage during the battle, but she'll be okay. The Soro Parts user gestured up to their new arrival. All thanks to this big guy right here. Kamakura nudged his chin up at the maximal. Yeah, I was about to ask, who's the new guy? And why does he look like Optimus? Tiger Claw scratched his chin. Rubbing the back of his head with a nervous chortle, Appelink greeted the group. I get that a lot, but as for my name, I'm Appelink. I come from the science colony Kimia. And he's my best mate from Cybertron. Flare-Up proclaimed, proudly wrapping an arm around his large shoulders while lifting Itsuka up to greet him. And Appelink, this is my bestie from Earth, Itsuka Kendo. Appelink's smile widened as he extended a finger down to greet the redhead. An absolute pleasure to meet you, Itsuka. Likewise. After shaking Appelink's pointer finger, the class rep of 1B got back on track. But we can save the rest of the intros for later. We're closing in on Prime's location and... boom! At that moment, the front of a different building suddenly collapsed not too far away, and through it came none other than Prime himself, pursued by Rodmus with All Might on their heels. The Autobot leader and Decepticon general were going at one another with their respective blades, axe and sword clashing with sparks flying everywhere. All the while, the symbol of peace continued to try and throw Rodmus off his game, tripping him up in an attempt to force a crucial mistake. I think you've got the wrong idea there, Itsuka. But the corrupted Khan was all too aware of that attempt. Would you stop, you annoying waste? Rodmus reared his leg back and went to kick All Might, only for the hero to catch his foot and not let go. What? Now Prime. All Might hollered. Pong. With the opening provided, Optimus knocked his fist straight into Rodmus' helm, throwing him in a daze. And taking that opportunity, Prime went to pry open the general's chest, only for Starscream to swoop in from high above and slam into him, throwing both of the bots to the ground as a result. I have had it up to here with your tampering in our plans, Prime. Starscream shrieked, raising his null ray directly at Optimus' nose. At this point, I don't care what Megatron wants. If it'll get our plans going forward, I'll kill you Mies, crack. ELF. A single punch from Appelink was all it took to send Starscream flying, once again bouncing off a building. He then offered a helping hand to Optimus. Greetings, Optimus Prime. Mind if I lend a servo? You, Optimus gratefully accepted, allowing the scientist to hoist him up. You're Appelink of Kimia, correct? That's right. I hope you don't mind us intruding. No, I greatly welcome it. Optimus grinned under his cracked faceplate. The Protectabots have already been a welcome, look out. With speed to rival a train, Optimus plowed Appelink over, both barely avoiding Rodmus' sword, to the point that it grazed the tips of Prime's antennae. The duo rolled into a crouch, facing off against the demented general. That does it. I'm through messing around. Reaching behind his back, he pulled out a silver blaster and took aim. This is the end, pew, ow. But he was cut off suddenly when Flare-Up and Strongarm started pelting him with laser fire, the former zipping around to cover him on all sides. Ack, you dare do this, Flare-Up, to your own brother. Flare-Up clenched her teeth and spat at him, you're not my brother. You're a corruption of his psyche wearing him as a skin suit. And now this is where you fall. No. Pulling the trigger of his blaster, Rodmus unleashed a shot of heat energy that cut through the rest of the incoming fire, melting through a chunk of nearby rubble until it exploded. Don't you get it yet? I'm the strongest Decepticon there is. None of you can hope to defeat me. None of yo, bam, ow, sock, gah, wham, oof. Just then, to the astonishment of everyone, a blue blur came rushing in from out of nowhere and punched Rodmus several times in the face, before an unidentified femme came in from the back and clocked him with her hammer in the back. He was sent face first into a fire hydrant as the femme stood before him, the blur revealing itself to be another bot as well. Woo! And the bad guy is down. Blur exclaimed. Nice. Moonracer added, giving him a fist bump. The others were stunned and perplexed, all aside from Appelink who gave them a thumbs up. Ha! Blur, Moonracer, just in time. More backup, I assume, Optimus deduced. Blur pointed finger guns at the Prime. You got that right, Mr. Optimus Prime, sir. And may I present to you, the guy who's got some unfinished business with the aft shaft over there. With a theatrical wave of his arm, Blur gestured toward the approaching yellow Camaro, its passengers already filing out. Prime's optics widened. Izuku, Kyoka, young Midoriya, All Might beamed, joining his students. And young Jiro, how did you find us? It was really easy, All Might. Izuku said, having placed his helmet back on. After all, we had him bring us here. The Camaro rolled forward and began transforming, right as Rodmus had gotten back up. And he was just in time to be met with Bumblebee's intense glare. The rest of the Autobots and humans were left completely stunned into silence, as was the general, all while be scowled into his red optics. "Hey there, old buddy. Remember me? Man, this thing goes down deep." RC wholeheartedly agreed with Jazz's sentiment. She expected the hole to go down fairly far, but it felt like half an hour since they started this descent. And yet still, it didn't feel like they were getting any closer to their objective. "I swear to Primus, Mr. God, if this is all a ruse," she started to say. But Ace kept a confident smile upon him. "Miss RC, you worry too much. Don't worry, we're almost there." "Yeah, well how can you be Sue? Ah." The intel officer received her answer when the mouth of the cave suddenly opened up before her, causing her to suddenly spin out into it. She transformed and clutched the humans tightly, skidding to a stop on her feet. "Ah, okay, maybe you are sure. Ooh, why is the room spinning and glowing?" Ochako uttered. Jazz, who had more of a controlled stop, allowed his passengers to disembark before he himself transformed. "'Cause it is, Chaco," he uttered, craning his head around the entire cavern. When the brunette's eyes refocused, she did indeed see that the whole area was glowing, all thanks to the massive energon crystals surrounding them. They were bigger than any she had ever seen, even the ones in the Rocky Mountains couldn't compare. "Whoa, I didn't know they could get this huge." Neon pressed her hands together as she marveled at the sight. "So beautiful." "Yeah," Kawa voiced as well. "But where's the, oh?" Mikanaga had reached up, taking the top of Kawa's head to turn it manually. And there, not far away, was the absolutely GARGANUTAN Autobot spacecraft. It was the exact shape that they had seen on May's scanners, the rear and side thrusters protruding from the ground with their multi-pronged engines. But from the angle they were looking at it, its sheer enormity left the humans utterly speechless. The craft was laid on its belly, and from top to bottom, it had to be about the size of a 10-story building. Lengthwise, it was probably twice that, though Ochako didn't know if she should count the panels that stuck out the craft's spherical cockpit. All the same, she was completely awestruck by what sat before her. And given the Autobots' reactions, she could only assume what this was. "Ain't no slaggin' way," Jazz uttered. I can't believe it. Ah ha ha." RC laughed, joyously pumping her hands into the air. "We're saved." Ochako peered up to her partner. "RC, is this the Ark number?" RC replied, much to the brunette's shock while still all smiles. "It isn't." "What do you mean?" It's enormous." "Yes, but the Ark is bigger." The femme's reply made both Ochako and Katsuki's jaws drop. "But all the same, this is fantastic. It may not be the Ark, but given the circumstances of what's going on upstairs, this ship is exactly what we need to bring this all to an end. Come on, follow me." Leading the group to a loading door near one of the wings, RC placed her hand on the scanning device next to it, silently thanking Primus when it analyzed her hand. Not 2 seconds later and the door shifted open, allowing the group to go in. "Whoa, pretty dark," Neon noted. Jazz and RC took point, switching on their headlights. "Damn, the big guy looks pretty intact for being underground so long," the former said. "My guess is that whoever placed him here must have deliberately done so." RC concurred. They knew the cavern was big enough for him. The humans were once again perplexed, hearing the odd way they referred to the ship. Guys, are you calling the ship a he?" Ochako questioned. But RC simply wagged her finger with a knowing glance. "All questions will be answered in time, Ochako. Come on, we've got a bit of a walk ahead of us." Sure enough, the trek had lasted about 10 minutes before they seemingly made it to their destination, another door, though this one was much bigger and had thicker armor. Once more, RC placed her hand on the scanner and it opened, allowing them all inside. What they saw next could only be described as a ship's command deck, with several different stations that were all Autobot-sized. Of course, the place was abandoned, but none the worse for wear. "All right, Jazz, look for the energon pump controls, I'll find the main power." "On it," Jazz said, the group fanning out across the entire room. "Damn," Katsuki uttered as he and Ochako happened upon a large chair. "The hell was this ship even used for?" Ace came up to them and stated, "Isn't it obvious? It's a battleship." He glanced over to RC. "Isn't it?" "Correct. And a very important one, At that, taking to the frontmost station, RC moved her body around until her headlights landed on a rather massive lever sticking out of the terminal. Aha! Jazz, find those pump controls. Got him. Jazz called out, standing in front of a different station. Alright, once I switch things on, that pump has got to come on at the same time. You ready? With a salute, Jazz signaled that he was, leading RC to grip the power lever with both hands. 1, 2, 3. CHK Voom. The moment she pulled, things began to light up in the room. At first, it was a flicker, and then, the lights came on fully. From there, Jazz slammed his fist down on a big, green button. Energon pumps, pump it up. Asterisk crochew crochew crochew. It didn't take long for them to hear said pumps start churning energon, and before long, it started to fade into the background of the low hum that passed throughout the whole ship. At first, things seemed smooth, but then ZZT, ZZZT ZTTTRRRRRRRMM. The lights flickered and things began to power down, much to the Autobots' confusion. What? RC's eyes darted toward the screen, and to her horror, she saw the energy levels start depleting rapidly. Oh no, no, no. The ship's low on energon. Recognizing the critical situation, Ace went over and set his hands on the control panel, his hands beginning to glow with that same mysterious power. Hold on, this ship isn't sunk yet. Boong. The same loud chime from before rang out through the control room, all while the power from that burst flowed across the walls and repowered everything. The pumps went into full throttle and the lights came back on, much to everyone's relief. Ha! Ace let out an exhausted breath, slumping against the wall. Ace, are you alright? Neon asked as she and the boys gathered around him in concern. Yes, that just took a lot out of me. As she watched the three friends help Ace up, RC had to admit, she was surprised by his move. He used a fair amount of his power to make sure the ship didn't go back into stasis, still not sure if he's a god or not, but he seems pretty dedicated. She shook that thought away, however, her attention shifting to the ship itself. Come on, buddy, I know you can do it. Focus on my voice, she called out. Can you hear me? Stay with me. But at the same time, she received several questioning stares from the humans. Lady, I don't know what you're trying to do, Mikanaga piped up, but I'm pretty sure the ship's not gonna. RC, is that you? And just like that, the humans were all left completely lost. A deep, booming voice had just echoed all around them, and they could tell instantly where it came from. Ochako covered her mouth. It talked. Oh, he can do lots more than that. Jazz affirmed. Jazz. There are Decepticons everywhere, the ship said in a panic. Chances of survival, slim. Whoa, slow yo, roll, big man. Jazz assured, rubbing his hand reassuringly across the central console. That battle's long over. The ship's voice paused before hesitantly asking, did we win? RC nodded, patting the console herself. Yes, we won, thanks to you. Okay, can someone explain to me what the hell is going on? Katsuki exclaimed in his bafflement. You're tellin' us this ship is freaking alive. Yeah, but he ain't been alive in a long time. Jazz elaborated. He sacrificed himself in a particularly nasty battle during the war for Cybertron. A pretty brutal scrap that left him in a modified stasis ever since. Pressing a few key commands into the console, RC brought up the log data, and within seconds, their suspicions were confirmed. We thought that his body was stored safely in an Autobot bunker, but apparently, Alpha Trion did give it to Padlock and his crew to take to Earth so they could hide those relics. The group peered up at the crew list that she had pulled up, and sure enough, there was listed. Padlock, Wind Dagger, Camshaft, Downshift, Overdrive. Even the ship itself was surprised. There's so much I can't remember. Well, we'll have to get you caught up later. RC said softly. Right now, we need your help. I don't know if I can, RC. Energon reserves. Low. Current levels at 20%. A determined grin made its way to RC's lips. Well, it's a good thing that I know just the person to call for that. Reaching up to her helm, she contacted Autobot headquarters. RC to base. RC to base, come in. Caked, RC, this is Signal Flare, the weaponsmith answered. Where in the name of Cybertron are you? I'm getting a weird read on your, wait. Are you underground? Are you in the ship? That's right, signal flare. And I'm gonna need you to bridge here and bring as much energon as you can. We need to get this fella up and at him. Ha, say no more, I'm on my way. Pumping a fist, RC exclaimed, great. Alright guys, let's get out there and start clearing the rubble, too. We've gotta get this ship back on its feet. As she made her way out, however, there was only one thing Katsuki and Ochako could say to that: this ship has feet. Back above the surface, Rodmus' anger was beginning to boil over. Between Prime proving to be more of a challenge than even he anticipated and now this happening, it was serving to test his patience, and he was failing. Before him stood the bot that he had thought he'd offlined with extreme prejudice, but now, it seemed that his prejudice wasn't strong enough. The little yellow scrap was now bigger, stronger and likely faster, and it pissed him off something fierce. No, this can't be happening, he roared. I killed you. Yeah, about that, B said with hints of a smirk. You should really make sure that your enemy's done for, 'cause speaking from someone who's nearly died twice, that kinda makes you a crappy con. Ack. Rodmus rushed in with his blade poised to pierce B's spark chamber, only for the scout to shift his stinger blade out of his arm and parry it. The energy was then conducted through Rodmus' sword and into him, the jolt throwing him back several feet. Oh, and surprise, B shifted his arm back to normal. I've got knife hands now. The surrounding bots and heroes could do nothing but stare dumbfoundedly at their friend, all aside from those he came with, of course. Izuku sent him a thumbs up. Nice work, B. Kyoka snickered in Rodmus' general direction. Hee, that oughta buy us some time. She nudged her chin over to Blur. Hey, I've gotta find a dude who's got no face and a window in his chest. Mind helping me out, Speedy? The Velocitronian shrugged and leaned down to pick her up. Sure, why not, but the name's Blur, little femme. I'd rather not get stuck with that nickname, please and thank you. No promises. Now let's go. Jiro, wait, Chium, but Aizawa didn't get so much as 2 words in against her choice before she and Blur shot off towards City Hall, no doubt intent on finding Soundwave. Prime, stop her. She doesn't know what she's getting into. The Prime was in full agreement, but didn't seem too worried. Indeed, Mr. Aizawa, however, there are currently 6 other Autobots currently combating with the Decepticons. And they are all rescue professionals, so I'm certain that she will be alright. He received a rather deadly glare from the homeroom teacher. You're certain? Mr. Aizawa, they're literally called, the Protectabots. All Might asserted. I'm certain that young Jiro will be fine. For now, the number 1 hero approached Bumblebee with aplomb. Ha. Would you look at yourself, Bumblebee? Talk about a righteous comeback. B grinned down to the man who had taken him in once and bowed his head. Thanks, All Might. Yeah, and I feel better than ever. He raised his head up just in time to see Prime, Flare Up and Strongarm approaching him, the latter two in utter astonishment while Optimus smiled behind his faceplate. Hey, everyone, I'm back. Strongarm and Flare Up both broke out into the biggest grins imaginable, now quite sure that they weren't dreaming. B, they exclaimed before rushing up to him. Why, you look incredible, Strongarm stated. Smashing. Flare Up added as well. Where did all this come from? I thought you were just supposed to get your spark transferred. Long story short, had to go through a reformatting instead. B poked his chest. My spark chamber was stuck in my old body, so Red put me into the protomatter. It was a bit of an explosive process, but I think the results speak for themselves. Down below, the students approached to voice their opinion as well. Well, that's an understatement, Tenya said. Setsuna punched the air and ecstatically shouted, Dude, you came in and shocked his ass. Yeah, B, you look fantastic. Itsuka smacked her fist into her palm. Now there's nothing stopping us from taking down these cons. My sentiments exactly. Optimus reached out and placed a hand on Bumblebee's shoulder. It's good to have you back, old friend. B nodded wholeheartedly. Good to be back, pun intended. A small chortle echoed through the crowd as he turned back around to face their enemy. Now, how about we take care of this chump once and for all? Out the corner of her eye, Kata could see the aforementioned chump start to move. Good idea, one that we should get started on, now please. The teen whirled around as Unicronus stirred, all while a soft laugh passed through his audio processor, and it got louder with each second. Haha, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ah ha ha ha. He stomped his foot as he stood back up, spinning around and thrusting his sword out at Bumblebee. B-127. You think just because you've come back in a new, upgraded form, that you're going to stop me? Not just me, you madman. Bumblebee declared as he, Prime, Strongarm, Flare-Up, Moonracer and Appelink all took out their respective weapons. And at the same time, Deku, Power Fist, Ingenium, Katasaurus, Lizardy and their escorts all came in as well, taking combat-ready stances with determined glares. WER. How noble, but that won't get you far. Rodmus raised his hand, revealing a cylindrical object with a big red button on top of it. No more delays. Before anyone could stop him, his thumb clicked the button, only for nothing to happen. At least, not immediately. But when a huge shadow slowly started casting over the group, their attention was diverted up, where they saw the still burning desolation come flying in. The ship may be damaged, but not enough to delay the inevitable. It's time this city be wiped from the face of this planet. The ship's hull began to split open when it was directly over City Hall, allowing 6 massive objects to drop down into the area. The crash landings brought all of the fighting going on to an abrupt halt, including stopping Blur in his tracks. Whoa! Kyoka cried out, keeping herself latched onto his shoulder. What the hell? Blur seemed just as clueless as he watched the objects slowly come out from the impact zone, revealing themselves to be giant tanks. There were 6 in total, all with 3 mounted turrets that had 2 barrels each, 2 on the sides and a primary one on the top, and then one of the tanks transformed. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. Assuming robot mode, it became quite obvious that these tanks were drones, what with the featureless head that only had a Y-shaped red visor in the middle. The primary turret situated itself on its right arm while the smaller ones were mounted on its shoulders. What are those things? Blur stammered, only for the 6 Protectabots to come rushing out in front of him. Destroyer Viacons. Streetwise hollered, keeping his weapon trained on them. Stay sharp. Kyoka did a double take at their unexpected appearance. Who are these guys? Hotspot craned his head around, peering down to her over his shoulder. We're the Protectabots, miss. Don't worry, we won't let any harm come to. RAAAAAAAGGHHH. At that moment, a loud roar pierced through the area, as Grimlock and Yukio were thrown toward the group. While Grimlock was able to stick the landing, Yukio would have smashed straight into the pavement, hadn't the Dinobot leader caught her at the very last second. Kyoka didn't even get to ask about that before Devastator came back into the picture, approaching them as the rest of the destroyer drones began to transform. Devastator says, "This is the end." My sentiments exactly. Hearing that familiar voice, Kyoka whipped her head around, staring wide-eyed at Soundwave as he, Skybite and the rest of the Predacons approached. And to top it all off, Starscream was hovering above them all, righteous fury etched across his features. Kyoka Jiro, it seems you haven't learned your lesson. Soundwave shook his head. I spared you thinking that you would, but sadly, I suppose not. Now, this is where you'll perish. Back with the others, MT. Lady's pupils shrunk to the size of peas when she saw this. After everything she'd given to fend off that big, green monstrosity, the mustachioed Decepticon had just unleashed another wave of forces to try and end them all. All while cackling like a typical villain. And it was her job to beat villains like him. RAAAAAAHHH. Smashing the ground with her fists, you forced herself back up and sprinted down the street, pushing past the drones to stand in front of the huddled Autobots. Whoa. Mount. Lady, wait. Kamakura called out. No, waiting time is over. Edgeshot insisted, using his quirk to catch up to his fellow lurker. We need to move. Tiger Claw gave Kimura a hearty slap on the back to get him running. No need to tell us twice. Let's go. Autobots, follow them. Optimus ordered, his concentration squarely on his enemy. Leave Rodmus to me. You mean to us? All Might insisted, with him, Bumblebee and Izuku joining him at his side. The rest of you go. We'll be staying right here. With full cowling powered up, Deku clenched his fists, ready to fight. You don't have to fight him by yourself, Optimus. We're with you, all the way. B rolled his shoulders and brought out his plasma cannon once more. I didn't get revived just to sit out this fight. Let's do this, Prime. My friends, yes, you're right. Bringing forth his Energon axe, Optimus stood in solidarity with his allies. His friends. This will be where we make our final stand. For Earth. For humanity. Such heroic nonsense. Rodmus spat as he brought his sword back up, along with his red energy buzzsaw from his other hand. You all think you're made of sterner stuff, but you throw away your lives so WRECKLESSLY. Well, fine then. I'll crush you all into the dirt. With a blood-curdling scream, Rodmus leapt forth, as his 4 opponents rushed in without fear. The rest of the team, meanwhile, heeded their commander's advice and joined the Protectabots, Blur, Kyoka and MT. Lady, the latter of whom was going on a tirade. I did not just pour my blood, sweat and tears into this fight only for you dumbasses to pull this out of your asses. She glowered down at the Decepticons, her gaze slowly trailing up to Devastator. I'll admit, I became a hero because I wanted to be famous, to get people's attention. But after today, I've come to realize something. This world, its people, they're all precious. And the fact that you cons want to take that all away from us. Her glare intensified as she screamed, it makes me sick. So bring it on. Yeah, Kyoka cried out, her fellow classmates joining her in her cheer. We'll take on all you sons of bitches. As the heroes and their Autobot allies shouted in rebellion, Hotspot was, astonished by it all. Here he stood, watching a race of small, organic creatures stand up to the Decepticons without even an inch of fear in their eyes. He could tell that they were scared, though, but their courage overrid it all. He was so enthralled by it that he almost didn't notice a familiar face come up to him. Hello there, Chief. Strongarm greeted. Oh, Cadet, Hotspot acknowledged. Sorry, I was distracted. It's good to see you. Likewise, sir. Strongarm saluted. What were you distracted by, might I ask? Craning his head back down, Hotspot watched as the humans and their Autobot allies went into fight, with MT. Lady in particular wailing on some of the destroyers. Even as they fired upon her, she did her damnedest to plow through, and thankfully, she wasn't alone, as Edgeshot helped her along the way. These human beings, even when confronted by overwhelming odds, they keep fighting. It's amazing. Inspiring, even. Rook concurred as he and his teammates all set their sights on their leader. So what comes next, Hotspot, sir? Narrowing his optics, Hotspot knew exactly what to do next. Especially as Devastator closed in on them. The situation has gotten out of control, so let's help these humans and our comrades turn the tide. Raising a fist into the air, he ordered, Protectabots. Integration circuits to maximum burn. He thrust his finger out and shouted, Scramble Protocol. Blade's optics lit up in anticipation. All right, ha. With a sudden, spinning jump, he began to convert his body, though not into vehicle mode. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT* rather, he had only gone about halfway, tucking his head and arms into his body while his legs remained extended, though they also connected to form a large arm. And in the process, his chest rotated out to reveal a large, cube-shaped peg that slotted right into Hotspot's right shoulder. Needless to say, even in the middle of battle, everyone was caught off guard. More so the humans, who were gobsmacked by the sight. What the hell? Kyoka exclaimed. It's now or never. Hup. First Aid exclaimed as he too transformed into a huge arm, his arms tucking into the door panels on his shoulder as they compressed against his body. His head tucked into the front of his vehicle mode, which remained propped up as a shoulder pad, while his legs also connected together. And just like Blades, a big peg jutted out from his chest and allowed him to connect to Hotspot's other shoulder. With the cons setting their blasters upon them, the ladder rig on Hotspot's back began to extend downward, resulting in him getting vaulted up into the air. As he was lifted up, his arms curled up and shifted into his shoulders, locking them in place while his legs also shifted up over his thighs, forming a much larger waist. Streetwise. Rook. At his word, the duo transformed into a pair of big, sturdy legs, complete with a black armored foot that emerged the bottoms of their own feet. Parts of their alt mode served as bulky knee pads as their own fasteners emerged from where their necks once were, plugging into Hot Spot's feet as he slammed down onto them. HRAH. From there, the black apparatus that held Hot Spot's ladder splayed out across his back, which was now the front of the much larger bot that the Protectabots now formed. The ladder swung under its groin and came back up against its back, with Hot Spot's head shifting into his body as the ladder's bucket took its place. And if that weren't enough, the bucket transformed into the Gestalt's boxy head, revealing a silver face and big, blue optics. System initializing. It spoke in a droning baritone as Groove stared up at it. Time to wake up. Hiya, he said before leaping up and flipping upside down, grabbing onto the combiner's chest. He performed a splits before bending his legs further, allowing them to plug into his own arms, which secured him to the big bot's chest. As the bot began to move, the others couldn't help but stare in awe, along with many big, joyous smiles. Composite integration, complete. With two big hands emerging from the combiner's wrists, he pumped them into the air as he declared, Defensor, online. Chapter 105, Bye-bye Babylon. Mirko was exhausted. On the one hand, she usually loved the feeling. It reminded her of how much work she put in being a hero. Reminded her about how alive she was. The sensation of being drenched in her own sweat reassured her that all of the effort she gave wasn't for nothing. But in this case, her being wiped was a bad thing, because the pretenders were still standing. Sure, they were visibly tired, too, but their enhanced bodies ensured that they wouldn't get as tired as their human opponents. Thus herself, Budo, Jinx and Snipe were all battered and beaten, kneeling on the road while Springer and Snake Eyes continued the fight. And even then, those two were starting to get overwhelmed as well, Snake Eyes more so after Octopunch grabbed him and socked him straight across the head. No! Jinx cried out. Master! Budo shouted, seeing the ninja tumble across the ground toward them. Thankfully, he was still conscious, but it was obvious that he was dazed, his head spinning in circles. Hey. Iguanus cackled with glee. Excellent. Now, how about we shish kebab you for good measure? As the lizard mutant scraped his claws, Submarauder pulled his sword back out. My sentiments exactly, old chum. Seeing this made Springer's anger spike. You bastards. As he struggled against Stranglehold, he launched both Sawback and Fangblade off of him and they crashed into Iguanus and Submarauder, stopping the duo from closing in on the group. Summoning all his strength, he pushed Stranglehold back and kicked him off, moving to defend the humans. If you think you've won, you should not underestimate a wrecker. Ahaha. Funny, because you seem to be just as beat as the rest of them over there. Octopunch stated, as Skullgrin and Bomb Burst joined him. At the same time, Stranglehold stood up, snorting and flaring his nostrils in rage. Unfortunately, we're still plenty ready to go, attack. The pretenders began their charge, and Springer was about to reach behind him and pull out his rifle, when something shocking happened. KRCK crack crackle crack. FWOOOOOM. From out of nowhere, a wall of ice and fire suddenly erupted between the two sides, much to the shock of everyone. Springer, the triple changer and his compatriots whipped their heads out across the water, to see Shoto sliding across an ice bridge toward them. Once he landed on the bridge, he rushed over to help them up. Are you all alright? Shoto, what the hell are you doing back here? Springer exclaimed. I thought you left with RC, Snipe added in confusion. The half-cold, half-hot user nodded. I did, but, some things happened. Well, a lot of things happened. Good news first, B's back in the fight. Hearing that made Mirko's ears perk up. Huh, nice. How's the little guy holding up? Well, he's not so little anymore, let's put it that way. Shoto shook his head. Just as big, though, we managed to get away down to the ship in the Energon cavern below the city. Long story on that one. Hey, so long as we get to that ship before the cons. Springer grinned. So, why'd you come back here? His question made Shoto pause for a moment. I had a bad feeling is all. Just something in my gut didn't set right leaving you guys here. Well, you were right to trust it. The sudden voice speaking up from behind made the group all spin around in astonishment, where they saw Blitzwing start to stand up once again. Shadow Striker was awake, too, but thanks to her legless state, she could only prop herself up against the nearest car. Asterisk WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT asterisk, because now I'm going to reduce you to molten slag. Picking up his element gun, Blitzwing aimed it at the humans and Springer. CHYOOM. Only for a ground bridge to immediately open over the water next to the bridge. What Z, crash, Much to the mad Decepticons' dismay, as well as the shock of those down below, none other than Jetfire came blasting out from the portal and careened right into him. And if that weren't enough, the Autobots' second-in-command pulled a sharp turn up high into the air and transformed, grabbing Blitzwing by the neck. Sorry to break it to ya, Blitz Brain, but you're about to get a real lesson taught to ya. Jetfire. The humans and Springer exclaimed. Jetfire. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT asterisk, woohoo. Now it's a real party. With his demented face out, Blitzwing pushed Jetfire away and transformed into his jet mode, with his tank turret underslung on his belly. Try dodging ZIS, fly boy. Ahahaha. Bursts of fire and ice were shot out at the aerial expert, but Jetfire masterfully bobbed and weaved around them all. He then transformed back into his jet mode and shot straight past Blitzwing, leaving him utterly stunned. Huh. Woohoo. May wasn't kidding, this speed boost rocks. Now behind his opponent, Jetfire assumed robot mode again, and began glowing with a familiar red power that shot straight into the sky. Cyber key power. Once the energy key plugged into his back, Jetfire's boosters split open and he leaned forward as the blasters powered up. How about ya dodge this? BWAAAAAMM. Ka-boom. As it happened, Blitzwing could not dodge in time and he was shot straight out of the sky, nosediving directly into the wall of ice and fire that Shoto had created. Crash landing flat on his back in robot mode, the bridge now had a perfectly shaped Blitzwing-sized crater, with small fires and tiny bits of melting ice surrounding him. Mine, heads, all his faces seemed to speak all at once before he finally lost consciousness. On the sidelines, Shadow Striker grit her teeth and punched the ground with her one remaining arm. Merde, but then, she caught sight of the pretenders, their way now fully cleared. Don't just stand there, you fools. Do something. Alright, come on, men, Octopunch urged, his team all readily brandishing their weapons. The heroes and Springer remained on their guard as Jetfire landed alongside them, all ready to keep fighting. Let's end this once and for ACH. But suddenly, and without explanation, the pretenders began to convulse and scream out in pain, their bodies beginning to shrink and contort unnaturally, back into their natural forms. No. Don't tell me, it's been 3 hours already. Damn it. Skullgrin growled as he went back to just being a skeleton man. We were so close. Around him, Bomb Burst, Iguanus, Stranglehold and Submarauder had returned to their natural human forms, too, and they were not too happy. Now, their weapons were too heavy to lift properly, and their armor barely fit them anymore. All in all, they looked a bit awkward. And Mirko found it hilarious. Ahahaha. Oh okay, now this was worth all the ass-kicking we had to put up with. You will all pay for, CHYOOM asterisk, huh. However, Octopunch was cut off when yet another ground bridge opened up behind him. This time, though, it was quite evident that it wasn't more backup for the Autobots. Because, causally strolling through, came none other than Silas. The leader of MECH approached his comrades with his hands behind his backs, his countenance serious as he addressed them. Otto, everybody, stand down. It's time to pull back. He narrowed his eyes at them. We're done here. What? Bomb Burst exclaimed. See, you can't be serious. I am. Most of the Decepticon forces have been badly beaten, and Flatline has ordered most of the main ones back to the dark side for immediate repairs. Setting his sights toward the Autobots, he extended a hand toward the incapacitated Decepticons, right as a small platoon of worker Viacons emerged from the vortex. So, if you'll allow us to take those two back with us, we will leave peacefully. Springer narrowed his optics right back at Silas. And why should we? What's stopping us from trying to bring you in? Crockett THOOOOOM. Beneath their feet, the bridge began to shake as, off in the distance, the Decepticon ship Desolation came flying over and opened up its hull, unleashed 6 massive objects down into the city. Seeing this, Silas remarked, I believe that would be your answer. It seems Unicronus is still trying to level the city. While the bots and humans were stunned by the sight, Jinx sent Silas a questioning eye. What do you mean, still trying? Well, if you ask me, this whole operation is a complete bust, he elaborated. Why do you think we're all evacuating to the dark side and not the desolation? As you can see, it's already on fire, likely won't be long until it spreads. Silas's grimace deepened. The only reason it's still here is because Unicronus somehow thinks he can salvage this, which I doubt. Using her one arm to prop herself up, Shadow Striker agreed. Z's is a lost cause. Better to just, She gasped as she suddenly lost her balance, only for Springer to catch her on the way down. You will never speak of Z's to anyone. We'll see about that, Springer countered, before unceremoniously throwing Shadow Striker through the ground bridge. See ya. You green-plated swine. The assassin's insult was cut off as she flew through the portal, followed close behind by Blitzwing, whom Jetfire tossed right over the pretenders' heads. Are you mad? Octopunch snapped. Behind his visor, Jetfire's own scowl intensified. Kinda, yeah. Now get outta here before we change our minds. Octopunch seemed ready to challenge him on that, but thankfully, Silas placed a firm hand on his shoulder, reining him in. And eventually, the pretenders turned around and made their way through the ground bridge, leaving the bots and humans to themselves. Though not for long, because not only did a certain Autobot ship come flying overhead, but the sounds of approaching engines from behind caught their attention, too. Driving across the bridge came none other than Bulkhead, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker, along with Erazor flying up above them. Also with them was a blue Cybertronian coupe that made Jetfire tilt his head. So I guess the cavalry's arrived, he deduced. Yeah, big time. Springer waved down his friend. Bulk. Springs. Letting out his passengers, Bulkhead transformed and went up to his brother in arms, the two giving each other a hearty shake. Haha, and Jets. Great to see ya back in action. Jetfire reached out and gave Bulk a fist bump, followed by Sides and Sunny. Good to be back, guys, he trailed off when he saw the blue femme approaching with Erazor, and he did a double take as he recognized her. Glyph. In turn, Glyph brightened up when she saw him as well. Jetfire. Oh, it's been so long. Friend of yours, I take it? Shoto inquired. Yep. Jetfire gave a thumbs up. Back when I was, briefly a scientist, she and I were colleagues. But then certain things happened and, well, you can guess what happened. Glyph placed her hands on her hips. If by, what happened, you mean you briefly joined the Decepticons and we almost had a falling out if it weren't for your change in conscience. With hands raised, Jetfire defended himself. Hey, it was literally only for, like, a couple days at most. Mistakes happen, right? The femme simply rolled her optics and gave him a small nudge. Relax. We're fine, Jetfire. And so are we. Mina chimed in as she, Eijiro, Tetsu, Abara and Denki gathered up. We gave those cons something to remember us by, that's for sure. Haha. I was wondering how our little hopeful wreckers were doing. Springer knelt down near Mina and Kirishima, seeing them covered in scuffs, grime and cuts but overall, still standing. And would ya look at that? Signs of survival are written all over ya now. Far as I'm concerned, you've earned those. Eijiro gave the triple changer a thumbs up. Hey, thanks Springs. We're just glad we could help out today. However, his brows knit together when he noticed that this was a bit of an odd group. Hey, hold on a sec, Springer, Todoroki, weren't you with Arcee's team? Hey, yeah, Denki pointed over to Mirko. And Midoriya and Jiro were supposed to be with you. Plus Roadbuster, Jazz and Bakugo. Where the heck did they go? Mirko rolled her eyes and jerked her thumb toward the other side of the bridge. PSH, some dude came and took him, said that he knew a way down to that giant ship or something. Erazor tilted her head. What do you mean by, some dude? He was being really cryptic. Budo pointed out. And he also had the ability to do things that I haven't seen any other quirk be able to do. He reversed time and summoned a motorcycle out of nowhere. That's strange. Crust pointed out as he, Midnight, Quick Kick, Kamui Woods and Smintas approached the other adults. Did you get his name? He called himself, Ace. Jinx stated, sharing a brief look with snake eyes. Though to be honest, I'm a bit wary of all this myself. RC and the others might have gone with them, but I don't exactly trust them either way. However, Jetfire was quick to brush off the concerns. I don't think you've gotta worry about that. RC's doing pretty fine, last I heard. He raised a finger, adding, in fact, while I was leaving, she called and asked Signal Flare to bring all the energon he could down to the ship, so I'm guessing that Ace Guy didn't steer him wrong. Abara laced her hands together with a happy smile. Well, that's certainly good news. And it gets better. Shoto spoke up, finally getting a word in. Bumblebee's back up and going, too. An elated gasp traveled through the crowd all at once. He is. Midnight placed a hand over her chest. Oh, what a relief, and what about the others? B took Midoriya, Jiro and 2 new bots to the main fight. Shoto nudged his chin across the city where the desolation hovered. Which I'm guessing is over there. Well, what are we waiting for? Mackenzie exclaimed with fists clenched. Let's head over there and help them. Up above their heads, the recon ship lowered down and spun around to face the whole group. I dunno who just said that, but I'm with ya. Tap Out said, the green bot waving out to the team through the front windshield. I'll head up and see if I can't do some more damage to that ship. Autobots, let's wreck and roll. As Tap Out pulled back up into the air, Mina eyed her partner and pointed after him. I like that dude. He knows what's up. Hey, he sure does. Bulkhead concurred. But you heard him, bots. Roll for it. Meanwhile, the best way to describe the battle at City Hall was with 2 words, utter chaos. The destroyer-class Viacons, all about the same size as Seaspray, had assumed their robot modes and were making headway into the city, though the smaller Autobots were making sure to get in their way as much as possible. They might not have been able to stop them outright, but they were intent on holding them off for as long as they had ammo to spare. And, thankfully, they still had plenty, especially as Strongarm combined with the Mini-Con Council once more. I don't often say things like this, but, come and get some. With her battle cry, the cadet unleashed a barrage of artillery upon one destroyer, managing to make it stagger back. But even so, that's all she managed to do, with it regaining its footing and aiming its arm cannons at her the next second. Gah! Pow pow pow! Cadet, I don't think a direct attack like that is gonna, wait. Just as Scythe was about to offer an alternate plan, he spotted that the chest plate of the gigantic Decepticon had been blown off, and its T-cog was now fully exposed. Never mind. Everyone, keep aiming at the chests. What? Flare Up exclaimed. Are you daft? That's where their armor is the thickest. But that's when Grimlock saw the exposed destroyer as well, and he was fully on board. No, wait. He's onto something here. Just because the armor is thick doesn't mean it's sturdy. He reached behind him and pulled out his sword, the long blade folding out and gleaming with energy. Shockwave thinks he's smart and makes mechanical marvels, but his creations actually have a lot of design flaws. Raw. As the Dinobot leader began slashing and Strongarm kept blasting, the remaining bots were less than thrilled. Oh, well that's just great. Blur called out. What are the rest of us who don't have ultra-powerful weapons do? We improvise, soldier. Yukio roared as she swooped in from above, careening shoulder first into one of the destroyers. Keita, with me. You got it. Taking a deep breath, Keita focused herself once again and charged straight in without any fear, this time focusing on a different dinosaur. Ankylosaur, Ankylosaur, Ankylosaur. All at once, her body again began to feel much heavier, though rather than the weight being mostly focused on her head, this time it was evenly spread across her back and over the club tail that emerged from her rear. And again, she was reduced to all fours, her legs short and stubby compared to the rest of her as her mouth took the shape of a flat beak. Gra-o-r-r-r. Whoop-pang. With a single swing, Keita the Ankylosaurus struck the destroyer in its knee and made it crumple, allowing Yukio to come in and slash at its chest even further. The Khan attempted to swat her away, raising its arm cannons with a baneful yell. Get off of me. Pow pow, but with amazing speed, Yukio flew away from the blasts, wherein Grimlock came charging at him in Dino mode and breathed fire on the destroyer's face. Yah. Kra chomp. With the metal plating heated, Grimlock was easily able to tear the armor off, and then he bite right into the destroyer's transformation cog, ripping it out of its chest. Raw-ah. Me Grimlock want to munch metal. And I wanna bash metal. Swinging her tail again, Kata struck the downed destroyer in its chest, causing sparks to fly all over the place. That might be bad, actually. Run! Yukio hollered, prompting her comrades to do just that. And then, KRATHOOOOOOM. The destroyer was reduced to flying limbs all over the place, the two dinosaurs and the dragon staring at the scene in astonishment. Well, guess it worked. Kata concluded. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT Grimlock transformed and crouched down next to her, and although Kata couldn't see it, he was beaming with pride. It sure did. And it looks like that's not the only thing that worked. He reached down and placed his hand upon her armored back. Just when were you gonna tell me about this? With a sheepish expression, Kata reverted back to her human form, twiddling her thumbs with a small laugh. Yeah, that's kind of a very recent thing. I actually first did it a little while ago when I was dealing with C, but then, her eyes widened in realization. Oh my god, Silas. We forgot about Silas. Yes, Grimlock uttered regrettably. There was so much happening that he must have slipped our minds. And slipped away as a result. Yukio added, though she placed a reassuring claw on Kata's shoulders. But don't worry, Kata. He'll get his at some point. Right now, let's focus on the battle at hand here. Kata gave a resolute nod and the trio stormed off, ready to help Strongarm with her destroyer. As that was happening, though, Edgeshot and MT Lady were having a comparatively harder time with their destroyers, mainly because they had caught on to the trick. Now, the large Decepticons were going out of their way to protect their upper bodies from all damage, much to the hero's chagrin. And if that weren't frustrating enough, Lizardy, Ingenium and Big Fist were sidelined with Eraserhead, who had deemed the conflict much too overwhelming. This sucks, Setsuna exclaimed. I'm aware, Aizawa said, watching on as Tiger Claw and Kamakura engaged their own destroyer with their combined quirks. But think about this, how would your quirks be able to match against opponents of that size and power? Not to mention, now that they know their weakness, they'll do anything to protect it. He gave the kids a stern eye. That includes taking your lives. And I'll be damned if I don't get you children home safely to your families. A fair point, Eraser. Tenya conceded. But my partner is out there risking her life to protect mine, forgive me if I feel a bit useless. At that moment, a certain voice piped up from behind. Better to feel useless than to be not alive. The trio whipped around and were met by a welcome sight, Roller and the Street Action Minicon team. I know that Optimus would feel the same way. The Minicon leader stated. Roller. Tenya and Itsuka exclaimed. High wire. Setsuna practically leapt into a hug, relieved at the sight of her partner. High wire reciprocated, almost stumbling backward. Setsuna, hi. Boy, am I glad to see you're okay. I was worried. So was I, ya big dork. The green-haired girl knocked him on the side of his helm, turning towards Sir Shock and Grinder. About all of you guys. Appreciate the kind words, but I think we've got a bigger problem. Grinder shouted, pointing up above their heads as heavy footfalls approached. The group spun around and were left gawking as one of the destroyers loomed over them, its arm cannon already charging up. Well look what we've got here, the large Viacon aimed its weapon at them. Electro Sheep ready for the slaughter. *WHRRRRRRRR. But right as he was about to shook, a high-pitched whirring noise caught the Khan's attention. Where's that? Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. The brute didn't even get to finish his sentence as bullets began whizzing over the humans and mini-cons, shredding through the destroyer's armor without any problem. Auk. With his chest plate reduced to scrap, it quickly shifted its cannon down the street and started firing at its new target, Roadbuster. Yeah, that's right, Chunky. The wrecker taunted as he rolled out of the way, all while holding an absolutely massive gun. It was a Gatling gun that had 3 8-barreled chambers, being fed onto top and both sides with belts of ammunition. Come in, get me. Roadbuster. Tenya exclaimed, only for the destroyer to suddenly transform back into its tank mode. BWAAAAAM it shot at Roadbuster with all 6 of its cannons, though the munitions expert himself quickly transformed and drove as fast as he could out of the way. But with its transformation, the destroyer's exposed T-cog was now on the back of its tank mode, meaning Roadbuster didn't have a clear shot anymore. And with its rotating turret, the Viacon made sure that he didn't have a chance to get to it. Just try that again, Wrecker. I dare ya. Ahahaha, VRRRRMM asterisk, huh. From out of nowhere, however, a certain green motorbike came zooming past the humans and swiftly transformed, taking hold of her hammer as she shot at the destroyer. I'll take that bet. Moonracer hollered as the rocket on her hammer kicked to life. Hiya. Crash! She struck the exposed T-cog and, within seconds, the destroyer's systems began overloading. No. No, 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 boom! Its protests did nothing to save him as he exploded into several pieces, leading the Street Action Minicon team to combine and cast a force field over everyone to protect them. Is everyone alright? Safeguard asked after the pieces stopped raining down. Why yeah, we're good. Itsuka affirmed, her gaze drifting over to Moonracer as she strolled over while spinning her hammer around. The young femme was also, humming a little tune to herself, which annoyed the redhead a bit. Hey, what the heck was that? You trying to get us hurt or something? Moonracer promptly stopped mid-step and her optics darted down to the group, suddenly feeling quite sheepish. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you guys down there. Isn't that always the case? Roller replied sarcastically. The Velocitronian bowed her head apologetically. Sorry. I'll try to do better. Hey. A gasp leapt out of Moonracer's throat as Roadbuster hailed her, still carrying his huge Gatling gun. You, with the hammer. Where'd ya get that? Oh, this. Moonracer lifted her hammer up, suddenly feeling a fearful tingle go up her spinal cord. It was given to me as a gift, by a bot named Leadfoot. And then, Roadbuster let out a soft chuckle. Hey, had a feelin'. I knew I recognized Leadfoot's hammer when I saw ya pull it out. He reached out and placed a hand on its head. So he gave it to you before he passed, Why yeah, it's a long story. One that I can't wait to hear. Roadbuster nudged his head toward the battle at large. For now, though, why don't we take this fight away from the humans? We've got a lot of reckin' to do here. What's her name, kid? With a dutiful salute, she replied, Moonracer, sir. Nice to meet ya. Name's Roadbuster. Now let's get movin'. Yes, sir. Just watch where you step, or else we'll be the ones caught underfoot. Her words left the wrecker perplexed. The hell are you talkin' abo, whoa. Thoom. It didn't take long for him to find his answer, though, as Devastator and Defensor came stomping across the battlefield. The two combiners were locked in head-to-head combat, grappling against one another as the City Hall grounds practically became their wrestling ring. With intermittent punches and kicks, they traded blows while stumbling across the open area, which made every other Autobot and Decepticon have to watch themselves to make sure they didn't get stomped on. Even the destroyers were careful to make sure they didn't get kicked. The whole scene left Roadbuster scratching his head. Well I'll be damned. Yeah, it's been like this for a little bit. Moonracer nodded. Well, it'll at least solve our Devastator problem for a bit. Roadbuster nudged his head toward a pair of destroyers that Flare Up and Appelink were still trying to work over. The Scout was doing her thing, zipping around and distracting them with pistol shots, while Appelink was having a bit more success in unleashing electrical blasts into them. Come on, those two look like they could use a hand. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, a much more personal fight was occurring. Kyoka had wasted no time in getting Blur to charge in against Soundwave after the Protectabots had finished combining, and the moment they went in, it wasn't even a contest. Soundwave had unleashed his worst against the two, making Kyoka's hands clamp down over her ears in utter agony. Blur had only just barely found a way out and sped off in a direction that hopefully Soundwave couldn't follow, stopping on top of a building. Okay, maybe charging in wasn't the best plan, the speedster stated with a bit of unkindness toward Kyoka. What exactly was your idea here? I was gonna give him a taste of his own medicine with my quirk. Kyoka said matter-of-factually. But you went in so damn fast that I didn't even get a chance. Well, weren't you the one who asked ME to get to that guy? Ya should have known what you were getting into. And maybe you should know that things on this planet normally don't go as fast as you. Before their argument could continue, though, pardon me. On cue, the two snapped their heads around, shouting, What? only to be met with Soundwave in his bomber plane mode, much to their chagrin. Foo, uuuuck. Within seconds, Blur picked the punk rocker up and zoomed back down to street level, though the communications officer simply followed behind while shooting at them with his underslung sonic cannon. "Ha, okay, new plan, we'll outrun him," Blur stated. "He's fast, but he's not faster than me." Oh no, screeching to a halt, Blur suddenly found himself faced with a new problem, a wall of Predacons and Starscream blocking his way down the street. Skybite, Gas Skunk, Slapper and Darkscream all cackled with glee as the Seeker beckoned him to come forward. "Oh, please, don't stop on our account." Starscream smirked. "Please, do come closer." Snapping his jaws, Gas Skunk added, "So we can have you both for lunch." Ahahaha. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT* transforming into robot mode, Soundwave landed behind the duo, causing them to spin toward him. "Ha, it's like I said, Miss Jiro, you should have just known when to give up." Soundwave superior. You are inferior. End of story. With fists and teeth clenched tight, Kyoka spat back. "I don't care how superior you are to me, asshole." Her declaration gave Soundwave pause, but she just kept going. "What I do care about is the fact that you tricked me into putting my entire damn school in danger. I'm not even out of my first year there yet and now this happens. How the hell do you think that makes me feel?" At this point, she was starting to tear up, her voice beginning to break. "Pretty fucking crappy, that's how. So keep going on about your superiority, but know that I will never forgive you for what you've done. Ever." Things were left fairly silent for the next few seconds, only for Slapper to comment, "Wow, you really made her mad, Soundwave." "Wow, you think?" Darkscream deadpanned. Blur, however, was starting to feel guilty for his earlier actions. "Oh, geez, MHA, Kyoka, was it?" The earphone jack user glanced at him. "Sorry. I was a pretty big jerk to you, and you didn't deserve it." "Not after all that." Kyoka's expression softened and she let out a soft sigh. "Blur, it's not your fault. I've just had a really shitty day, sorry for biting your head off, too." She sent him a soft smile. "Now, how about we kick these guys' AFTS back to where they came from?" "Hey, you got it." Blur and Kyoka shared a fist bump, before rushing off and disappearing from the con's view. What? Starscream raised his arms on either side of him, keeping a sharp optic out. "Be on alert, they could pop up at any, yow." And just like that, Blur reappeared and kicked Starscream in the backside, sending him tumbling straight into Skybite. Starscream, you imbecile, get off me." The Sharktacon bellowed before his fellow Predacons helped him out, by literally tossing Starscream off of him. "Ha, thank you. Now as for you." He thrust his arms out, deploying his torpedo mini-cons. "Get 'em, boys." Dragonus and Sandsting rocketed off at high speeds toward the duo, but they proved to be not fast enough as Blur shot forth again and grabbed them out of midair, and changed their course right back to the Predacons. "AAAH. Gas Skunk cried out, "Scatter." And the group leapt out of the way, aside from Starscream, who was still picking himself up. "You cretins. How dare you, boom. Yeah." The Seeker commander was promptly sent careening once more, and hit yet another building, smashing his head through the wall. Why does this keep happening? With a disappointed sigh, Soundwave resigned to the inevitable, he'd have to handle this himself. Such incompetence. He reached up to his shoulder and opened his chest drawer. Laserbeak, eject. Operation, Sharpshooter. With a shrill screech, Laserbeak deployed from his master and quickly began firing down at Blur. But once again, the Velocitronian was too fast to be hit, until Soundwave unleashed his own widespread sonic attack, bringing them to a stop. BWAAAAAAAM. GYAAAH. Kyoka's hands flew up to her ears, but she found herself suddenly thrown off of Blur as Laserbeak finally hit him, bringing them both to the ground. Crack! Ow! She landed on her arm, and it quickly became evident that something had happened. She wasn't sure if it was a fracture or a full break, but Kyoka was now in agonizing pain. Blur gasped as her scream cut through the area, all while Soundwave approached them. Laserbeak flew down and perched on his arm as he took aim at the two with his blaster. And thus, we come to the inevitable end. Farewell. Honk honk. However, before Soundwave could pull the trigger, a loud horn caught his attention, and to his astonishment, he was met with a battalion of Autobots coming straight toward him. Leading the pack was Bulkhead, followed by Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, and then Glyph bringing up the rear. Then, high above, Jetfire, Springer and Erazor came flying overhead, the former shooting straight over Soundwave's head along with the recon ship piloted by Tap-Out. But while the green Autobot pulled up to engage the Desolation, Jetfire transformed and landed right next to Starscream, yanking him straight out of the building and onto his back. Gah! Who dares? CHKT*. The Seeker was promptly silenced when he was met with a rifle in his face, and his former friend glowering down at him. Oh, Jetfire, where've you been? Gettin' fixed. Jetfire jabbed his blaster into Starscream's cheek. Now call it off, Starscream. If you know what's good for ya. Starscream scowled back up at him. What a vague, empty threat. Unfortunately, it seems this operation has lost the plot, along with Unicronus' common sense. Ya got that right, Bulkhead affirmed, his cannons trained on Soundwave as the twins and Glyph set their own weapons on the Predacons. Silas and most of his gang already flew the coop, and we even got a few of them detained. Oh, fantastic. As the Autobots kept their weapons up, the humans accompanying them quickly rushed over to Kyoka to help her. Jiro. Jiro hollered, seeing her pained grimace. Kyoka, are you okay? Mina and Abarad gently reached down, helping her sit up. The Perplet sucked in a sharp breath, instinctively moving her arm away. Stop. Arm hurt super bad. Pushing her way through the crowd, Jinx knelt down and ushered the girls away. Stay back. This could be serious. She reached down and gently placed a hand on Kyoka's cheek. Don't worry, sweetie. We'll get you out of here. Glancing back, Jinx saw a quick kick follow her, the young woman's eyes full of concern for her junior. Mackenzie, I need you to help me get her jacket off. Gently. Alright, the martial artist joined her teacher by Kyoka's side. Don't worry, Kyo, we're gonna help you. Thanks, THOOM. Kyoka's eyes snapped open as everyone did a double take, whipping their heads around as the ground shook beneath them. You may wanna hurry that up. We're about to have company. Tetsu shifted his eyes around, looking for whatever was causing the rumble. Company. Jiro, what are you? Oh my god. He quickly found his answer as Devastator came shambling around the nearest corner, using a building to support himself while glowering down at the group. Predictably, everyone screamed at the sight. What is that? Denki exclaimed. It's Devastator. Bulkhead hollered. We need to. Rah-ow. But, to their surprise, the green and purple gestalt was yanked back, and Defensor came stomping into view, turning his back toward them to protect the group. To say that the crowd was left completely awestruck was an understatement. What? Smintos exclaimed. What, or, WHO is that? The Autobots, however, were completely ecstatic at his appearance. Defensor. Sideswipe's hands flew up to his helm, gripping on in excitement. Haha, no way. Glyph, you didn't mention you brought the Protectabots with ya. Glyph sent a wink to the team. Yep, surprise. So the Autobots have a combiner of their own, Midnight concluded as Defensor turned his head toward them. Astounding. Little did they know, however, that Defensor was currently scanning the entire group, taking note of their multiple injuries and stamina levels. Needless to say, his concern grew exponentially. Sensing high levels of exhaustion and multiple wounds, his optics eventually landed on Kyoka, her body splayed out across the street as Jinx and Quick Kick tended to her. Her jacket was now off, and he could see her right arm beginning to swell and turn red near the shoulder. Alert, extensive damage detected. Switching from defensive parameters to high protective protocol. As he droned on, the humans were left perplexed by his form of speech, as was Erazor. Is he okay? She asked. Yeah, that's just how he talks. Sunstreaker assured, watching as the big bot's attention went back toward Devastator. But now watch this. This is where it gets good. The Constructicon combiner roared as he once more charged at Defensor with arms raised and ready to fight, but the opposing Gestalt was ready for that. He brought his own hands up and proclaimed, initiating force field burst. He thrust both arms forward and, whoop-pow, a sudden blast of energy erupted from his palms in the form of a wall of light, which pushed Devastator so hard that he actually tripped and fell onto a destroyer. Crunch. The large Vehicon only gave somewhat of a tortuous scream before its entire head was crushed beneath Devastator, and from there it exploded beneath him. Auk. Defensor will pay. Switching tactics, Devastator pulled off his shoulder-mounted crane and attached one of his drills onto it, intent on driving it straight through Defensor. But then, Defensor raised his right arm. Blades, deploy and distract. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT launching off of the combiner. Blades transformed into a red and white Cybertronian helicopter and immediately started flying circles around Devastator, all while pelting him with laser fire and missiles. Whoa, now that's awesome, Tetsu cheered. It's not over yet, Jetfire pointed out. Watch this. To the group's astoundment, Defensor detached his left foot and then kicked his leg up, flinging it off in the process. Rook, replace arm. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT within seconds, the leg that Rook had formed extended out and changed into a heavily armored arm that attached here Blades once was. Blades, return. Then, just as quickly, Blades came back and attached to Defensor's empty knee, his propellers folding up on the shin before the combiner stomped down onto the foot, reattaching it. Scramble complete. No freaking way. Mina was practically bouncing up and down at this point. He can switch his limbs. Devastator, now very angry, went to complete his attack, but the drill simply bounced off of Rook's heavier armored arm, allowing Defensor to get in his next move. Activating photon cannons. From his wrists, the Autobot combiner deployed a pair of arm-mounted cannons that blasted Devastator straight in the face, leaving him paralyzed. And then, from his right hand, Defensor deployed what seemed to be a defibrillator that sparked with electricity. Applying voltage. Clear. Ziza AAAAPP. Throughout Devastator's body, the electricity was expelled and, with one final scream, the combiner was forcibly separated, his limbs blasting off into their component beings. Clattering to the ground, Scrapper and Bonecrusher were left completely incapacitated, and while Hook tried to move, he found himself squashed by the other half of Devastator's torso. Crash. S02. Long haul. Bluff. Finally, Scrapper and Mixmaster landed the closest to the Autobots, and were the most mobile out of their team. Well, that was unpleasant, the latter said. What a bold statement, Scrapper uttered sarcastically. Now get up, we have to form Devastator Aga, thump. But just as he was about to stand, Scrapper was met with a rather big foot in front of him, and it wasn't Defensor's. He slowly craned his head up and was met with a familiar face. Bulkhead. Scrap. The wrecker addressed before nudging his chin toward the other con. Mix. BB Bulkhead. Mixmaster feigned a smile and spread his arms out. What a strange coincidence. What are you doing here, CHKT. But in a split second, the friendly vibes were quashed when Bulkhead aimed his cannons at the two with a stern glare. Oh, this isn't a good reunion, then. Far from it. Now I suggest you take the gang and leave. Bulkhead turned towards Soundwave as well. That goes for all of you. This whole thing is practically over anyways. From under Jetfire's foot, Starscream sneered at the green bot. What do you mean? Springer jerked a thumb up to the desolation. He means that your plan's fallen apart as we speak, Screamer. Most of your team's already evacuated that ship, and your strongest players have fallen. Lugnut, Skullcruncher, Blitzwing, Blastwave, all down for the count. Same goes for Skywarp, Shadow Striker and Slipstream. Sideswipe added with a thumbs down. You dudes are toast. Soundwave was given pause at that. Slipstream, too. He began weighing his options, doing several calculations in his head. Logic dictates that, at this point, it would be prudent to make a tactical retreat. No. All of a sudden, the rockets on Starscream's feet ignited and shot him straight into the air, throwing Jetfire off balance. Gah! Starscream, get back here. Jetfire shot into the air to follow the Seeker, but by then it was too late. Starscream reached up to his helm, contacting the ship. Desolation, this is Starscream. If there are any of you sorry excuses for Decepticons on board, then I command you to activate the warp cannon. Do you hear me? That's a direct order. His dictations were answered almost immediately as, from under the ship's front end, a large door opened up, and an immense cannon slid out, charging up soon after. Down below, the heroes and Autobots were left astonished. What is that thing? Crust exclaimed. Starscream, you idiot! Scrapper hollered. What are you doing? With a matted glare, Starscream raised a clawed hand and proclaimed, if we cannot have the Energon, then no one can. As all of this was happening, Unicronus was in a similarly maddened state, and for very similar reasons. He had done everything in his power to make sure that this plan would go smoothly, and yet now, it was all falling apart. All thanks to an annoying yellow bug. With B-127's return, not only did Prime fight with renewed vigor, but he was now joined by not just All Might, but the annoying, green-haired kid. And it all served to piss him off when they came at him from all angles. He fought furiously, though, intent on ending all of them. Would you all just die already? He bellowed, only to get sucker punched by Bumblebee. Sorry, you know how that went the first time. Be quipped before doing a spin kick to follow up, knocking Rodmus in the abdomen. Izuku, All Might. On cue, the pair came flying in with their fists clenched and pulled back. Are you ready, young Midoriya? All Might bellowed. Always. Izuku affirmed before smacking the left button on his belt. Punch. Together, the mentor and pupil brought their fists forward in a united uppercut straight to Rodmus' chin. Montana. SMAAAAAASH. Wakum. Ow. Rodmus was promptly sent sailing down the street, where Optimus Prime was already waiting. No. But despite the pain he felt, the general kept his grip firm on his sword, raising it and his saw blade up to bring them straight down through Prime's head. But of course, Optimus wasn't about to play that game. He took hold of his ion cannon and aimed right at Rodmus, causing the Khan's optics to widen. Pow! The shot rang out and Rodmus was struck straight in the arm, blowing out a chunk of his armor. As he landed, though, Optimus' own optics widened. Because, rather than blowing a hole through the general, he had only shorn off the black and purple armor, to reveal red armor plating underneath. Ah! He gasped. All Might and Izuku quickly noticed it, too, as did Rodmus himself, who began frantically gripping at the exposed metal. And no. Shifting his buzzsaw hand back to normal, he reached behind him and brought out a silver blaster and started shooting wildly across the street, forcing everyone to duck. You won't get him back. I'll make sure you won't get him back. I need his body. B's optics narrowed in contempt. So you admit you're not him? And no. I am him. Oh, or am I? Gah. His confusion only made Rodmus' blasts more erratic, flailing his arms all over the place in a blind rage. Stop confusing me. I'll kill you all. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. Bumblebee rushed forward and transformed, speeding toward Rodmus and ramming into him, knocking him flat on his backside. Prime. Optimus quickly followed up by body slamming the general, walloping him with heavy fists across the face. Release him. The Prime growled wrathfully. Release Hot Rod at once, you malevolent trinket. All Might added, getting in on the beatdown as well. You're not even a real being, are you? You've just been the twisted Matrix all along. As the duo beat him down, B looked down to his partner. Izuku, quick, his chest plate. Right, let's go. Rushing forward, the duo made a desperate leap for Rodmus' chest, and that's when things started going wrong. No. Chow! All at once, Rodmus' body began erupting with purple lightning, zapping his four enemies and sending them hurtling back through the air. Izuku and All Might's costumes were left scorched by the ordeal, while Prime and Bumblebee were temporarily paralyzed. I am Rodmus Unicronus. The maddened Khan proclaimed. And there's nothing that's ever going to change. WHRRRRRR. He paused mid-sentence when a loud sound met his audio receptors. He craned his head up, and immediately gaped at the massive warp cannon that was aimed straight down at the city, already charging up. What? Where did that come from? Izuku asked weakly. Prime struggled to his hands and knees, staring up at the giant weapon with frightened optics. A warp cannon, they've gone mad. Rodmus whirled around and defended himself. I have nothing to do with this. He reached up to his comm and shouted, "Starscream. What is the meaning of? If we cannot have the Energon, then no one can." The Seeker Commander's declaration could be heard by everyone, and it only made Rodmus angrier. He spun around and went to transform. "You damned fool. If that cannon fires, we'll all be, ow." But he was stopped by, shockingly enough, Bumblebee, who had forced himself back to his feet so he could throw Rodmus back down to the ground. "Ack, you can't be serious. Do you have any idea what's about to happen?" "I am." B flexed his neck, bringing his fists up for the fight to come. "And I'm not worried. Because at any point now, my friends are gonna be here with something that'll knock your hydraulic pistons off." He sent Rodmus a smirk as Deku, All Might and Prime also returned to their feet. "So for now, bring it. Phew, and that's that." As everything was happening up above, Signal Flare had just finished siphoning all of their Energon reserves into the massive, sentient ship. A hefty price to pay, for sure, but one that would likely pay off if they could secure the enormous cache of Energon just outside of the vessel. He, along with RC and Jazz, stood within the ship's central power core, which was, in fact, a gigantic spark chamber, though they quickly stepped out once the weaponsmith had finished his job. "That's every last drop," Signal Flare stated. "Nice job, SF." Jazz commended before shouting out to the ship. "So, big guy, how are ya feeling now?" "Better. Energon levels have increased to 75%. Parameters, ideal," the ship replied. "However, there is still a problem. Optical sensors rendered at 0% visibility. I can't see." RC gave a knowing smile and nodded. "Yeah, that's because your face is still buried in rock. How about the rest of you, though? Rear thrusters and stabilizers have successfully been unearthed. The organic beings have returned inside. We know that much, Mr. Ship." Ochako piped up as she and the others came walking through the halls toward the Autobots. She sent her partner a smile and salute. "Everything's good to go, RC. We're ready whenever you are." The Femme gave a nod of approval. "Great. Just one more thing." Once more, RC lifted her head and addressed the ship. "How's the Supreme Module?" Just then, a holographic screen appeared in front of her, depicting what could only be described as a train battleship fusion, on treads. The vehicle was outfitted with several mounted dual turrets as well as a rocket thruster at the very back, while the cockpit was sloped down with a jagged cowcatcher at the base. Furthermore, the front and back halves were connected by a large, bulky piece which oddly resembled a pelvis. "Supreme Module is fully functional." Katsuki couldn't help but tilt his head. The hell is that?" "It's the ship's land-based module," RC explained. "He can shift his consciousness between the two for different purposes, but the main purpose for it here is purely for its other function." She sent the duo a smirk. "You remember how I said this ship had feet?" She pointed to the Supreme Module on the screen. "These are what I mean. Literally." At that point, Ochako, Katsuki and Ace's group all went wide-eyed. "You're kidding me," Mikanaga uttered. "See, can this thing really?" Neon stammered. "Of course it can," Ace said with a knowing grin of his own. "I sensed it the moment we stepped foot in here, but now comes the next part, getting it out of this cavern without demolishing half of the city." Before RC could even think of a response to that, her comlink suddenly clicked on. "CHHK, red alert to RC. Red alert to RC, do you copy?" Hearing the unusual amount of panic in his voice, RC responded immediately. "RC to red alert, what's going on? I hope you've finished refueling your giant friend, because we need his help now," the medic continued. "Starscream's ordered the Decepticon warship to use its warp cannon to destroy the city and the Energon underneath so no one will have it." The news made everyone's eyes widen, but it only got worse from there. "And if that wasn't enough, Kyoka's been hurt. I want to send Marissa through a ground bridge to help her, but..." "What?" Jazz cut in. "Well, what the hell are we waiting for? We gotta get this show on the road." He spun right around and started dashing for the main bridge. "Hold on, Kyo. Jazz is coming for ya." "Red, we're on our way," RC assured, following after the lieutenant with the others. "Send Marissa through that bridge, and have her tell Kyoka that it'll all be okay." Once they arrived at the bridge, she, Jazz and Signal Flare each took a control station, while the humans remained gathered together. "Alright, no time for subtlety on this one. We're gonna have to bust through the ground." Signal Flare tilted his head to her. You're certain that's the best course of? But RC cut him off with a serious gaze. It's the only course of action right now. A small amount of damage to the city is better than it getting totaled. It was then that Ace cleared his throat. Ahem, I was actually about to say, I have a solution for that. He trailed off as everyone's sights went to him. But I'll need a favor from this ship itself. Can you hear me? I can, yes. This made Ace smile as he came up to one of the control stations. I can help you get out of here, but I need to know your greatest desire. Desire, the ship said curiously. A term that means to long for something, a concept that I have not thought of in quite some time. Yet I sense that you do have one. Ace assured, placing a hand on the control stand. Even for a being as imposing as yourself. So please, tell me what it is. There was a moment's pause before the ship came to its conclusion. My greatest desire is to not see another city fall by Decepticon hands. I was the guardian of a place called Crystal City, and I failed in protecting it from an unexpected Decepticon attack. A low rumble began to shake the entire ship as its engines kicked to life by themselves. It was that same event that left me in this state for the last several million years. I wish to make up for it. With a determined grin, Ace's entire being began to light up. That's all I needed to hear. Get ready to fly, everyone. Bong. All at once, that same energy encompassed the ship, and with seconds, they were greeted by the sight of a bright, blue sky through the windshield. At first, they were all left astounded by the change in scenery, until they suddenly felt themselves falling. Aaaaaaah. Ochako lashed her hands out, grabbing the nearest thing attached to the floor. Bakugo, however, wasn't so lucky, crashing into the ceiling. ACH. The hell is happening? Thrusters, activated. KRA Chum. The very next moment, their feeling of weightlessness was undone as the ship stabilized itself, causing everyone to fall back to the floor. Ah! Ochako fell on her feet, and Katsuki came crashing back down next to her, much to her astonishment. Bakugo. Are you okay? I hate today. An awkward grin spread across the brunette's face. Okay, you're fine, but just then, the sound of someone else falling caught her attention, leading to her seeing Ace collapsed on the floor. Ah, oh no. Ace. Kawa and Neon rushed to his side, propping him up against the wall. You alright? With labored breaths, the scarf-wearing man gave a shaky two-fingered salute. Yes, though now I definitely need a break. Can't blame you, Mikanaga said, peering through the front window. But I don't think the others out there can afford it. Look, the group set their sights out, spotting the desolation with its cannon pointed straight down at the city below. We'd better get over there, quick. Manning their stations, the Autobots got started on doing just that. Already on it, RC assured, typing into her command console to tap into every comlink available. All Autobots, this is RC. You guys had better get clear, because we're coming in hot. Reaching for a level, RC pulled it back and hollered, activate emergency defense mode. Codename, Omega. Compliance, affirmative, . It wasn't long after hearing RC's call that the entire area was met with the sound of roaring thrusters, a noise so loud that it forced everyone to cover their ears. Human, Autobot and Decepticon alike were left shaken by the thunderous sound, though at this point, Kyoko was actually welcoming anything to distract her from the searing pain in her arm. Is it over? She muttered desperately. Please tell me it's over. Before either Jinx or Quick Kick could answer her, a ground bridge suddenly opened up directly next to them, and through it rushed none other than Marissa Fairborn. It will be soon, she said as she hastily knelt down next to the perplet. Don't worry, hun, we'll get you fixed up. Marissa. Kyoko's eyes widened. What are you? No time. Here, the young woman set her hand on Kyoko's arm and began to apply her quirk, spreading her healing energy throughout the wound. It only took a few seconds to see results, with the swelling going down considerably. Eventually, the pain went away completely, and Kyoko let out a heavy sigh of relief. Oh, that feels so, oh god. But then, her entire arm began to lose feeling, to the point that it hung at her side completely numb. Oh god, this is weird. Yeah, sorry. Marissa apologized. You should regain feeling in a few minutes. For now, though, we should get clear. Choom! All at once, everyone's heads whipped up, and their jaws fell at the sight of the massive Autobot ship coming in over their heads, casting a shadow over the entire area. Ha! They did it. Kyoka beamed, finding the strength to stand up again. They actually pulled it off. Leading the rest of the team, Bulkhead ushered for the ladies to follow. You bet they did. Now let's get to a safe distance. Defensor, cover us. At his command, the Protectabot combiner carefully made his way over them and lifted his hands, covering the entire team in a force field as Bulkhead sent a knowing smirk down to the humans. Trust me when I say this, you guys are about to see something spectacular. Across the battlefield, Grimlock, Strongarm, Appelink and Flare-Up were getting the exact same feeling as they witnessed the huge, red, gold and gray ship come hovering over them. Oh, Primus, move. Grimlock ordered, disengaging with the destroyers they were facing off against. Grab the humans and move. He picked up Keita and Yukio as they returned to their human forms, while Strongarm quickly transformed and went to get Aizawa and his group. Beast mode. Appelink hollered, transforming into his ape mode before picking Safeguard up as well. With a mighty leap, he went into the air and his legs transformed into his hoverboard, setting Mini-Con Combiner down on it before zooming off. Is that what I think it is? If it is, then this battle's already won. Flare-Up shouted giddily as she sprinted away, only to then spot Rodmus still in battle with Optimus, Bumblebee, Deku and All Might. Let's go, rub it in Unicronus' smug face. By that point, though, the Decepticon general had noticed the ship as well, and by that point, all sense of reason had just left him. No, this can't be. He can't be here. RAAAAAHH. Once more, he started shooting wildly all around himself, preventing the bots and heroes from getting a clear opening at him. Why must all my plans be, bam, ow. However, Flare-Up proved to be faster than any shot he could take, dodging expertly before clocking him right in the jaw. Don't you get it yet, ya bloody wanker? She spat as Grimlock and the others joined them. It's 'cause ya underestimated us. You didn't think we'd be a threat. You thought we'd break when you broke B. But we didn't. Hers and everyone else's sights went up to the giant ship in awe as its bottom opened up. And now, it's all about to come crashing down on ya. Deploying Supreme Module, came a loud, booming voice, before an entire other vehicle dropped down and crashed into the City Hall courtyard. Once the dust settled, they could see it clearly, and Izuku was completely perplexed. Is that some sort of train? Indeed, the long vehicle heavily resembled a train of some sort, if the train were on treads and decked out in weaponry. It was mainly colored silver with gold accents over the treads themselves, along with a long line of red going over the front of it. Toward the back it was covered in black armor, which matched the turrets, while the rear thruster was a sterling silver. And connecting both halves was a piece that could only be described as a giant pelvis. Climbing out of Strongarm, Tenya noticed the similarities as well. Yes, a very odd train. And, I think it's moving on its own. The blue-haired boy's assessment was correct, as from both ends, the Supreme Module began to extend itself and rise up. The rear thruster and front of the train shifted up as the center went rose, becoming a set of feet, for what were now ostensibly a pair of gigantic legs that were as tall as Defensor. Across the battlefield, the sight was enough to make MT Lady forget about the destroyer she was currently throttling with edge shot, choosing instead to gawk as the ship started flying down toward the giant legs. Don't tell me, she uttered. You must be joking. Edgeshot shook his head, but the Autobots knew exactly what was about to happen. Way to go, RC. Bumblebee pumped a fist. Go get him. Finally, the ship went into free fall, and transformed. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT. Boom. The entire thing contorted in a way that appeared unnatural, but actually ended up in a fairly cohesive, if asymmetrical, upper body. The stabilizers on each side had formed up together into one arm while the main thruster at the back moved out to form the other, resulting in a pair of limbs that were absolutely massive. The left arm, formed by the stabilizers, was shaped like a giant cone that had a metal spike at the end and was held by 4 large clamps at the elbows. While the right arm was slightly and cylindrical, the 4 rotating prongs now serving as fingers as the internal thruster glowed brightly. The rest of the ship's transformation was rather straightforward, though, its main body reshaping into an actual torso. The moving cockpit rotated down into the chest, covered by thick, red paneling which was locked in place by heavy, golden shoulder pauldrons. And, from out of its back, emerged a pair of curved, wing-like structures made of what seemed to be some sort of scaffolding. Finally, the head emerged from between the shoulders, a gray helm with red stripe detailing over top it, covering a stoic, yellow face with gleaming white optics. Over said face was a bubble of clear glass, making it resemble an astronaut's helmet. And, at the very back of the gargantuan bot's head, a red cannon barrel emerged, sticking straight out at a slanting angle. With his optics lighting up, the humongous Cybertronian began to move, his stance widening as his upper body secured into his pelvis. All systems operational, his claw hand began to rotate, generating power. Weapons optimal, his expression hardened at the destroyers below. Conclusion inevitable. He lifted his head, declaring his name at the opposing Decepticon warship, I am Omega Supreme. As his voice boomed across the city, the Autobots were left to cheer their audio processors out, all while the humans stared on in complete awe. WHAAAAAATT. Kyoka, Mina, Setsuna and many others were heard screaming, so loud that even Izuku could hear it from where he was. Omega, Supreme, the Greenette said, his breath taken away by the amazing sight. The Decepticons, on the other hand, were completely beside themselves. Well, at least a couple of them were. Ah-ag! Starscream cried to the heavens, aiming his null rays at the Titan as he gave the destroyers a new command. Don't just stand there. Attack! Attack Omega Supreme! The large Viacons had no choice to comply, but even as they blasted him, their attacks did barely anything to Omega's heavy armor. It was to the point that Omega didn't even flinch as he strode forward, and simply began to crush them all beneath his massive feet. No, 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 no please. One of the destroyers tried to escape this fate, but then found itself in one that was far worse. Shink! Stabbing his cone-like arm down, Omega speared the tip of it through the destroyer's abdomen and brought his claw arm up, the hand spinning rapidly and generating an artificial gravitational pull. No! Scrunch! The Viacon's upper body was pulled off of its torso in seconds, and Omega followed up by throwing it right into Starscream. Yeah! Crash! The Seeker was bowled directly into Soundwave, the duo colliding further into the Constructicons, who were already very wary at the sight of Omega. Well, that tears it. Scrapper deduced. We need to leave. But Scrapper, we beat Omega last time. The Constructicons foreman cut Mixmaster off. Because we pre-planned that attack, Mixmaster. We can't hope to bring Omega down like this. Besides, he watched on as the Titan began to charge up his claw hand with what would likely be a potent energy burst. I think it's pretty clear we're not winning this one. Everyone watched on as Omega raised his arm up, twisting his head around 180 degrees to aim the rear cannon on it. He raised his left leg as well, the three turrets there swiveling up to aim directly at the Desolation. Unleashing ultimate attack, Omega Onslaught. Pow pow po 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 pow. CHRRRRR, Wuam. Heavy fire from every artillery point on Omega's body was unleashed upon the Desolation, along with an absurdly huge beam that blasted forth from his claw arm. Not only did this result in the warp cannon exploding immediately, but the sheer force of the blast sent the ship sailing across the sky until it was over the city outskirts. And then, Crockett THOOOOOOM. In a fiery inferno, the Desolation exploded in half over the Nevada desert, and once both halves cashed down, they exploded even further, sending up a cloud of sand, smoke and shrapnel into the air. Even past all the tall buildings, everyone could still see the cloud fly up into the sky in the distance, and it was a sight that brought relief to many. The battle was over. But not for Rodmus. For him, this was the last straw. Gah! He roared violently into the ether before spinning around to charge at his enemies, ready to rip them to shreds. You, all of you, you are responsible for this. All of my struggles, all of my failures, they all lead back to Gurk. Midway through his tirade, though, Roadbuster came rushing in from the side and stabbed him in the shoulder with his combat knife, pulling him back with a forceful choke. Get over here, ya lil punk. Grim, help me out here. With pleasure. Grimlock obliged, yanking back hard on Rodmus' other arm. Hold him there. B instructed as he ran up and brought out his stinger again, stabbing Rodmus once again and leaving him paralyzed. That left an opening for Izuku and All Might to come darting in, the duo leaping onto the general's chest. Young Midoriya, let's crack him open. Without hesitation, Izuku complied and smashed his fist through the middle of Rodmus' chest with All Might's, before the duo forcefully pried back the purple metal to reveal the matrix of chaos. Stop. Stop this. But Rodmus' screams of protest were for naught. Bumblebee spun around and called out to his leader, Prime. Do it. Optimus didn't have to be told twice, opening his chest and the annex to reveal the finishing blow. Matrix of leadership, he called to the artifact within him as it began to glow brightly, energy swirling around his entire being. Free this innocent bot from the shackles of Unicron's dark oppression. And, by the will of Primus, light his darkest hour. Prime's chest thrust forward and, from the matrix, a beam of brilliant blue light shot straight into the dark matrix's center, enveloping Rodmus in the process. Stop. No. This can't be. Through it all, Unicronus' dark armor began to peel away, revealing the red and gold beneath it. I was supposed to win. Bumblebee shot him a nasty sneer. Nah, Hot Rod was the real winner. You're just a sore loser. See ya never, Unicronus. No. *CRCRA crack. In one final shimmer of light, Rodmus' face was blown off of his body, revealing the face of Hot Rod underneath. The light also blew the matrix of chaos out of his chest as it began to heal itself, and within its central chamber, a spark came flickering back to life. Once his chest closed back up, Roadbuster and Grimlock carefully set him on the street, while an astonished Flare-Up and Strongarm joined them along with the others. Oh my word, Tenya remarked. Was that really the power of the Matrix? Itsuka muttered. Amazing, Setsuna agreed. So this is Hot Rod, huh? Just then, Flare-Up suddenly collapsed onto her hands and knees out of sheer shock, shakily crawling over to her brother. Roddy, she cried as she gently set her trembling hands on his helm, moving his head over to rest them on her legs. Roddy, please, if you can hear me, say something, anything, please. Just then, to everyone's surprise, Hot Rod actually did reply. His optics began to open slightly, if weakly, and his lips began to move before whispering two simple words. Thank you, but then, his optics powered down and his body went limp, his head lolling off into Flare-Up's hands. Roddy. All at once, a chill went through everyone there. And no, don't tell me he's. Bumblebee gripped his helm in a panic. Please, no, not again. He's not gray yet, Appelink pointed out, gingerly making his way past everyone to get next to Hot Rod. Let me take a look. The Maximal lifted his hand and activated a built-in scanner, a small computer screen flipping out of his forearm to give him a diagnostic. After only a few seconds, he let out a relieved sigh. He slipped into stasis lock. Spark rate is normal, but his systems are performing a full reboot. He's rebooting? Yukio questioned. Appelink nodded down to her. Yes. It seems that the dark spark left his body with so much trauma that it's caused his systems to do a complete reset. We'll have to monitor his processor closely to make sure that his mind isn't affected, but, he gave the group a hopeful smile. He'll be alright. Hearing that, Flare-Up broke down into a sobbing fit, clinging onto her brother while hollering, Hick, thank Primus. Yes. Bumblebee pumped his fists into the air. Primus, thank you. Well that's great to hear. Kata smiled as well, only for her gaze to land on the matrix of chaos. So, what do we do with this? Shank. Kata and everyone else were left gawking as Grimlock promptly stabbed his sword through the center of the dark spark, its eerie violet light dimming as it was split in half. And then, just for good measure, he stomped on it several times over, reducing it to nothing but bits and pieces of crystal shards and metal. Well, what do you know? Unicron's bauble was just a cheap knockoff. Goes to show that he really didn't give a scrap about any sort of followers he had. Roadbuster nodded. Now we just gotta hide it where no one'll find it. And I believe I know just the place. Optimus said, craning his head down toward Hot Rod. Don't worry, old friend. Once you wake up, you will be given the warmest of welcomes. Then, out the corner of his optic, he saw Starscream, Soundwave, the Predacons and the Constructicons all staring at them in disbelief. All at once, the Autobots and heroes glowered at them in contempt, with Optimus waving his arm dismissively. Leave, now. At first, Starscream was about to reject the command, but just a few rumbles later and he suddenly felt very small as Defensor and Omega Supreme loomed over them all. Not to mention the fact that Bulkhead's group had returned, all aiming their weapons at them as well. Begrudgingly, he knew they stood no chance. Starscream to Darkseid, he said into his comlink. Mission failed. Requesting ground bridge. It only took a second for the portal to appear next to the cons, and while most of them scrambled in, Starscream and Soundwave remained for just a moment more. This isn't over, Prime. Once the Seeker Commander went through, Soundwave added, once Megatron hears of this, you know what will happen. This planet will be wiped off the face of the galaxy. I wouldn't count on it. Izuku removed his helmet, glaring back at Soundwave. Because if we fought this hard against all of you to protect one city, imagine how much of a fight we'll put up against Megatron. Correct. All Might affirmed, his teeth clenched as he struggled to keep up his muscle form. If Megatron wants a fight, then I say bring it on. We'll never surrender to him. Right. He received a collective shout from Autobot and human alike, prompting Soundwave to scoff as he turned to leave. HMPH, your funeral. And with that, he was gone, leaving the ground bridge to close up and for the two groups to fully reunite. Everyone clamored about on the street, congratulating each other on their collective victory. However, a certain punk rocker was only focused on finding one single person, and it wasn't long before she spotted the green mass of scraggly hair above the crowd next to a pair of rabbit ears. Kyoka proceeded straight through and didn't stop until she reached him, smiling happily while shouting out for him. Izuku. Ah, Kyoka. The greenette beamed, excusing himself from Mirko to meet her halfway. We did oof, but, without warning, he suddenly found himself in a hug, the earphone jack user managing with only her one useful arm while the other hung at her side. Congrats, Green Bean. Kyoka winked up at him. You did what you said you'd do. You actually helped free Hot Rod. Seeing Mirko smirk at him out the corner of his eye, Izuku's cheeks flushed red while rubbing his neck sheepishly. Oh, it wasn't that big a deal. All Might and I only opened his chest so Prime could get a clear shot. However, that's when he noticed the state of her limp arm. Wait. What happened to you? Why's your arm just hanging there? It was Kyoka's turn to blush this time as she admitted, hey, well, I kinda broke it. Seeing Izuku's eyes nearly bulge out of his head, she quickly reassured him. But Marissa came from HQ to heal it. So now it's just really numb. Oh okay, that's good news, then. Once he had regained his composure, though, Izuku found his gaze shifting up towards Omega Supreme and Defensor, the latter carefully moving past the massive crowd. He could also see RC, Jazz, Signal Flare, Ochako and Katsuki having emerged on Omega's shoulder, all waving down happily while Ace's group stood off to the side. But man, this has been an insane day. No kidding. May's gonna flip out. Seeing Optimus and B drawing closer, Kyoka waved to get their attention. So, Omega Supreme, EH. Optimus nodded with a soft chortle. HM, it seems so. I had wondered what his fate had been after the fall of Cybertron. The Autobot leader set his sights up to the Titanic Autobot, raising his hand to him. It's good to see you again, old friend. Kneeling down, Omega brought one of his large fingers up to his shoulder, allowing RC and the others to climb back down to the street. Likewise, Optimus Prime. It is good to be back online once more. He lowered his head to his passengers. Thank you, everyone. You have my eternal gratitude. You're welcome, Omega. RC reciprocated. It was the least we could, A sudden tapping on her shoulder alerted her to the arrival of Bumblebee, the sight of him immediately making her light up. Oh, well hello there. Hey, check it out. Bumblebee nudged his head back toward Hot Rod, his body being carefully lifted by Grimlock and Roadbuster. He's alive. Fantastic. He deserves a second shot. RC nudged her hand against Bumblebee's arm. Nice work out there, Scout. Optimus strolled over, placing a hand on Bumblebee's shoulder. I believe you mean, Warrior, RC. Bumblebee, effective immediately, you're to receive an advance in rank. The news took B aback, along with everyone else. Wait, really? Indeed. Time and again, you've shown your bravery in times of crisis, even as a scout. And today was your bravest showing ever. Optimus extended his hand to the yellow bot, smiling behind his faceplate. Congratulations. Staring at the hand, Bumblebee eventually smiled back, and placed his hand over top of Prime's. I appreciate the thought, Optimus, but I'll have to politely decline, at least for now. If anything, that only left everyone more stunned. Wait, what? Mina piped up from the crowd, her and the rest of the students all stampeding toward the front. Okay, first off, the fact that this is how we find out you've got your voice back and a killer new bod to boot is one thing, but you're refusing to take a promotion. Ajiro scratched his head in bafflement. Yeah, B, you earned this. Why turn it down? Hey, guys, I get where you're coming from, but honestly, I just don't feel ready for it. Bumblebee pat his chest. Sure, I've got this new loadout and body, but I've still got a lot to get used to with it. Besides, he shifted his optics over to flare up. I wouldn't want us to be down a scout. Maybe I'll take that warrior rank someday, but not today. Flare up sent him a smile while shaking her head. Ah, ya humble lil bugger. A very mature decision, Bumblebee. Optimus nodded. Very well, I will respect it. Now, for more pressing matters. There's still much work left to be done before we can call it here. CHKTTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZWHRR. Everyone's attention was brought to the Protectabots as they separated Defensor, returning to their individual robot modes. You're absolutely right, Optimus. Hotspot said, approaching his commander. Defensor's scanners have detected several humans still in need of rescue across the city. Many are injured as well, First Aid pointed out, so time is of the essence. So we're gonna have to fan out across the city again. Midnight deduced while her eyes scanned across the group of no doubt tired heroes. Think we'll need a few more sets of hands to cover it entirely. However, as if in response to her statement, Optimus Comlink suddenly sprang to life. CHHK, Prime. This is Fowler, come in. Agent Fowler, Optimus answered. Yes, I read you. And I'm glad to inform you that the Decepticon threat to Mission City has been quashed. ... Well, now ya tell me. Fowler grumbled on the other end with a regrettable sigh. Sorry I couldn't come in sooner, but between getting my butt back stateside and going through too much bureaucratic bullshit to describe, I finally got the go-ahead to bring in the rescue squad. I've got Joe's, Pros and more Sector 7 teams coming your way now. All Might, doing his best to keep up appearances, ushered Optimus to lower himself down so he could speak with his old friend himself. Hey, better late than never, Bill. Just tell me, is Stars and Stripes part of this unit? The agent's tone brightened up at the question. She is. And she's excited to see ya. I'm certain she is. Tell her and everyone else she's bringing that they'll definitely be welcome to help us with civilian rescue and evacuation. It's time we bring this whole thing to a close. I'll be sure to let him know. Fowler out. With that, Optimus cut the call, giving All Might a knowing look. You need a rest, don't you? Hawk, desperately. Toshinori confirmed, coughing up a bit of blood. Giving his friend a nod of understanding, Optimus addressed the crowd. Autobots, heroes, I cannot thank you all enough for everything you've given this day. Because of you, we've driven off the enemy, saved the city, and secured the energon beneath it. He set his sights out to Omega Supreme and Hot Rod's comatose form. As well as reclaimed old friends in the process. But our job is far from over. Fan out and rescue as many civilians as you can. Understood? Yes, sir. The team collectively saluted. Well then, Autobots, transform, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT* all at once. Every bot transformed into their vehicle mode, allowing their human compatriots to file into them one by one. The only exception was Omega Supreme, who carefully took hold of Hot Rod's body to store him within his own, and roll out. With that last order, the Autobots and heroes all set out, ready to finish the job that they had started. And this of Season 2 Part 53 of this What If, hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.